Welcome back to the Revamp Podcast. Super excited. Terry Kravaris, did I get that right? All right. I was worried I was going to get it wrong. Mortgage extraordinaire.
Yes.
Going to share some knowledge and wisdom about the mortgage industry. And I just learned, as we sat down, that you had a past life in the legal world. So I want to kind of go over that too. And, see what your journey has been along the way and everything.
It's been interesting.
I bet it has, man. I bet it has. I don't hear that very often. Somebody that was in a legal profession that transitioned to mortgage. So, dude, let's start there. Like, how did you get into law in the first place?
Well, when I graduated, so I went to Drexel University in Philly. When I graduated in finance. It was a finance degree. And it was the dot-com bubble.
Okay.
So there weren't many finance jobs available. And if they were very low paying. And basically, I in my mind, I didn't go to college for 4 years to, be somebody's gopher. So I was like, what can I do? And, law always interests me. I had taken like a couple of finance law and business law courses. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to law school. And I took the LSATs and all that. I did really well. It's really my saving grace that I did well in the LSATs. Because, college was college. I had a great time, but it was college. And then I thought to myself, well, I can't stay in Philly around all my friends and go to law school.
Why?
I just felt like I wouldn't be focused.
Okay.
I needed to be outside kind of my friend group because I was easily distracted.
Fair.
I mean, I was a young kid, 20 years old. You show me a good time, I'm ready to have it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep, that makes sense.
So, maybe going to New York was probably like, well, you're just leaving one to go to a party city. No, like I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
No one. So I went to law school, New York Law School in New York, and I met a lot of great people that I'm still friends with today. And I was there for about I was an attorney for about 10 years.
Okay.
I was there for 13 years, roughly, in New York. I went to buy a house in New York. This is how the transition back to Philly and then later from a lawyer to mortgage guy started. So I went to go buy a house in Brooklyn because that's where I was living, in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And it was like one of those regular brownstone houses that you see on TV, like on the Cosbys. You know what I mean? It was small. It was like 800 square feet or something like that. Had 2 bedrooms. The washer and dryer were in a shed outside in the yard.
Nice.
So it was horrible, right? So I'm thinking in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm going to put maybe I'll get it for $200,000-$300,000. Now, mind you, this is back in 2006, 2007.
Okay.
Maybe 2008, somewhere around there. And I'll fix it up and, that's where I'll live. So I get to the list, the agent, I'm like, how much, this is before it went on the market. I knew a friend that was like, oh, this is person. So they're like, we're going to list it for $900, but if you're ready to buy it today, we'll sell it to you for $800.
What a deal.
$8?
What a deal, baby.
Are you crazy? So I was that kind of like...
Was shit actually selling for that?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was justified.
I mean, it was crazy.
It wasn't that they were just trying to rob you.
Yeah, and listen, I was, being a lawyer and being in that world, you are pretty much, you don't know what the hell's going on outside of your world because you're so focused and paperwork and writing briefs and reviewing and preparing for arguments. You don't have time to just see what's going on everywhere else in the world. You know what I mean? Like we had the Great Recession during that time. I had no idea what the fuck was going on, bro.
Really?
That's how entrenched you are in
That's wild.
I had no idea what was going on. It didn't affect me. It didn't affect my business. In fact, we were busier.
Were you working crazy hours too? Like grinding,
crazy hours. like weekends, nights, just nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, I would wake up, work out, go to work, come home, eat, go out, work. Like
rinse and repeat.
Yeah, rinse and repeat. That's it. You know what I mean? That was my life.
Yep.
Like I had no other like things going on. That's all I had time to do, and that's all I did.
Yep.
So, that kind of exercise, and I was like, you know what? Let me find out, like, what do because I wasn't I was making good money, but not like I can spend $800,000 on a house money.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? Let me ask. Like, I knew a couple financial advisors and a couple financial planners. So I'm like, you know what? Let me ask these guys, what do I need to make in order to raise a family? Because I'm like, now I'm starting to think about my future. That's why I was thinking about buying a house. And so I was like, well, how much does it take to live in New York? Like, how much do I need to make to raise a family? 4 people in my family, 2 kids, a wife, live comfortably, maybe go on a vacation once a year. So the guy was like, and you want to live in New York? I was like, yeah. He's like $750,000 a year. I'm like, okay. I need to start transitioning to move back to PA, where there's some sort of, sanity there, at least in my mind. Because I grew up in Philly, you know what I mean? Growing up in Philly, my parents were, owned a pizza shop, restaurant, you know what I mean? Like numbers like that just didn't exist in my world.
Right.
I had no comprehension that, buying $800,000 for a house makes sense. In my mind, it doesn't even.
And the path to even trying to get to $750,000 a year, just seemed ridiculous.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just like, I have to be a lawyer for God knows probably another 15 years to even have a chance to crack somewhere, some semblance of that number in in New York City. So I'm like, that path it's not for me. Plus, I'm tired of New York City. So I came back. I was like, fuck it, I'm going to move. I moved back. I got my PA license here. It was really easy. Like, I didn't have to take another test because I was already barred in Jersey and New York.
Okay.
So they waived me into PA, which was cool. So I got a job at like a big firm down in the city. And bro, I was just sitting in an office, like doing research and writing. And that was not my job when I was practicing as an attorney in New York. I was in court. I was arguing motions. I was doing depositions. I had trials. I had all types of things going on. So I was like moving and shaking constantly.
Yep.
You know what I mean? In the beginning, I was doing a lot of that bullshit work where you're sitting in a freaking office for 12 hours a day doing research and writing and just answering to people and, editing briefs and doing all that stuff. And, 10 years later, I'm in PA at this firm and I'm doing it again. And I'm like, this shit is for the birds.
Is that how it typically works, like in the legal industry, like with attorneys, that it's kind of like you climb the metaphorical corporate ladder at the broker or the firm that you're with, and then if you kind of bounce around, that it's like...
Not necessarily. It's when you move, like practicing in New York is, at least like a civil procedure standpoint, is entirely different than practicing in PA, which is the Commonwealth. Like in New York, they have a unified civil procedure, meaning that everyone has to abide by the same rules in terms of how they present motions, how they address the court, all of that stuff. It's all, the rules of the court, the procedural rules are all the same.
Okay.
In each county in New York City, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island, they're all the same.
Got it.
You come to PA, like Philadelphia County has its own set of rules. Delaware County has its own set of rules. Montgomery has its own set of rules. So every county is completely different. So when I first started in PA, I was like, all right, where's the procedure book? Because honestly, knowing the rules is the most important thing.
Right,
Makes you
right.
the
How can you
best-
play the game
could
if you don't know the
yeah,
rules?
you could be an average attorney, like an average attorney. But if you know the rules, you'll be excellent.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Dumb question. Why aren't there uniform rules kind of nationwide?
That is not a dumb question. That is a great question.
How can there be...
So civil procedure is different in each state, which is why you need to be licensed in each separate state for law. Why they don't have uniform procedural rules? I mean, they do it. They have it for the federal courts. Obviously, federal courts are very efficient, and you get cases resolved quickly in federal court. People are a lot more knowledgeable. Judges read cases.
Well, you have
briefs.
the ability to be more knowledgeable because
Yes.
you're not bogged down by trying to figure out the fucking,
Correct.
difference. Okay. Wow.
Correct.
That's crazy. This is
But
news to me.
State law, each state court has different procedural rules. Like New York, New Jersey are kind of similar. There's some nuances that are different. I mean, PA and Jersey are entirely different. PA and New York are entirely different. And I just felt like I didn't want to start from like the beginning again. Like I already went through this road. Like, why am I going to go through this road again? I don't have like, I don't, even this may sound a little off, but I don't have like a passion for law. You know what I mean?
I totally get it.
Where I'm like,
Did you have that when you started?
No.
It was just kind of like, I want to make a crap ton of money.
I want to make, like, honestly, and I just want to make money. Like, how I make money, as long as it's legitimate, is irrelevant to me.
Yep.
Like, the goal is to make money.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And how I make money, if somebody presents an opportunity for me and I think it's going to make money, I'm probably going to do it because, that's the ultimate goal.
Yep.
I mean, if people talk about, being free, and in my mind, financial freedom is freedom. Like the ability to be like, okay, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because that's not mine. That's not my thing.
Yep.
Right? And
when you have the ability for the first time to be like, I don't need to do this. That's
so having that ability kind of like to say, I don't need this.
Yeah.
I can say no.
Yeah.
The ability to say no to
that's right.
to money because you're okay and comfortable. To me, that's freedom. You know what I mean? Not having to do what somebody is telling me to do because I don't want to do what they're telling me to do. That's freedom to me because I can say no and I can go make money somewhere else. Yep. You know what I mean? So when I was young, I didn't really have like, oh, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a finance guy. All I wanted to do was make money. Like, however I got to do that, let me learn as many different things on how I can make money. And I'll do that.
Yeah,
I'll do the best thing.
I think that's relatable for most people, most kids, most teenagers. It's like, dude, I just want to make money.
I just want to make money.
Yeah.
I was working at my parents' pizza shop. I was doing that. If I could go to take things and sell them from my garage, I would do that. Whatever I could do to make money, I
Hustling,
did it.
Yeah.
I hustled.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, at the frat parties, I used to set up little stands for beer stands. I used to sell beers outside of frat parties.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was in, people were telling me, were you part of a frat? No, but I love those. I love those parties.
I make some money.
Dude, I
meet
make
some people.
I make like a $2,000 a freaking weekend.
That's
just
wild.
selling beer outside of a freaking frat. You know what I mean? Like, and nobody bothered me. You know what I mean?
It, dude.
But that's like that's my mindset. You know what I mean? Like, so me being a lawyer, law is interesting, and trust me, going to law school changes the way you think of situations. They teach you to think of issues in a particular fact pattern. Like, for instance, I walk in here, I sit down. how many issues are there that could go wrong between me walking in and sitting down? People will be like, there's not much. There's a shit ton.
Yeah, absolutely.
A shit ton of things that could go wrong from me having a heart attack, knock on wood, to me tripping on the wire, to anything. Me choking on my own spit. There's a bunch of things that could happen. And law really, like going to law school, really teaches you to hone that skill. What issues do I see? Which is a great life skill.
It is a great skill.
Which I think,
it's the core entrepreneurial skill as well. It's find problem, solve problem.
Yeah, there's going to be a shit ton of problems. You almost like prepare for yourself, because as an attorney, that's what people come to you for. Like, I'm getting into this business. What are my risks? Meaning, how many freaking problems am I going to have?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they come to you.
And the answer is infinite, dude.
Exactly. They'll never stop.
It never stops, no matter how good you get.
Yeah. So, and at the time, so there goes I didn't really have, like my wife, for instance, she's an attorney, Cynthia. She has a real passion for what she does. You can tell she's an excellent litigator. Like, she just comes across like, this is, she's believable, she's sweet, she's on top of it. Like, but she has that passion for it.
Yeah, right.
I didn't have a passion for it. So I'm not going to, kind of go through the grind of it again just to get to a position that I was already at. To me, that's me going backwards.
Yep.
And so then at the same time, I think this was 2012 now, where, they were doing like a bunch of HARP refinances, if you remember those.
I do.
Yep. So a buddy of mine was working at Wells Fargo, and he's like, Terry, this is the easiest money you're going to make. Like, basically everybody was at 5%, rates were at 3%. It's like, do you want to refinance? Yeah.
Do you want free money? Like, the pitch is very enticing,
yes. And it's almost hard to fail. You know what I mean? If you had any kind of intelligence and personality, you would succeed at that part of it. So, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to get into mortgage. I always like numbers and finance. So I was like, it's something that I like to do. So I'm going to do it. And honestly, that's where I learned the mortgage business, like the rules, the guidelines, everything like that. Like, I learned it at Wells Fargo, which was great. I guess having the law background, I was focused on the rules. I was like, if I can learn all these lending guidelines, then I'm golden. You know what I mean? That's all I need to learn. And then the sales stuff will take care of itself. Right. You know what I mean? But if you can't speak like intelligently about it, you're behind the eight ball. You know what I mean? You're not going to do well.
Yeah, but you already had a leg up, because it's like you're already highly educated, highly intelligent, right? So it's like probably just plugging in the stuff from the manual. It's like, okay, and you really don't need to know it probably. Like, I'd love to hear your input on this, but it's like probably most of the information or knowledge that you use talking to the average consumer, it's probably like first grade level, basically, right? It's like because they're not educated on mortgages and rates and all these things. Definitely not on economics and all the other crap going on. No. So it's like you need to be able to kind of dilute it down to the simplest form.
Correct. I mean, you have to be able to do that. The interesting thing about mortgages, and what I find, a lot of people think, all right, I make X amount of dollars a year. That's my income. And it's not necessarily that's your income. Like the way the regulators have require the underwriters, and honestly, if you're not underwriting your own deal before it gets submitted to underwriting, you're not a good loan officer. You shouldn't be doing that job.
Got it.
You should know, when I submit, I tell you,
you
this
already
is
know.
Now my 12th year, 13th year doing this. I think in 12 years, I had one loan denied.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Because I underwrite, like, I know what their underwriter's looking for.
Yep.
So if I'm submitting it to underwriting, I know it's going to get approved unless something fucked up happens.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But if you're not doing that, if you don't have that understanding, you shouldn't, in my opinion, like you're just, it's just a difficult job to have because you don't know if that's going to get approved. And if you don't know if that's going to get approved, you're just, first you're taking this person, this poor soul, on a emotional roller coaster
ride. Yeah, for
You're
sure.
ruining your
man.
relationship with your realtor because you think, oh, they're approved, and they think, oh, I'm approved, and then you tell them, no, they're not. I mean, the disappointment is,
man.
For me, like that, saying that to someone, that was enough for me to be like, there's no way I can ever do that to somebody where I say, yeah, you can do it, and then no, I have to go back and take it away.
It's soul crushing.
It's crushing. It's soul crushing for people.
Absolutely, man.
So, there's different incomes are calculated different ways. Trying to educate people on how to do it, or how that's done. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little difficult because it's nonsensical. Like it doesn't make logical sense in the way that you and I would think about it, unless you're just a salaried employee, making 60 grand a year. That's what you
Clean
make.
cut.
Yeah, nothing crazy. When you get into people, making, working hourly, overtime, bonuses, then you got self-employed. You have people that have, different LLCs coming one showing like losses of, 400,000, then you start getting into the guts and like
a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, a little bit more complicated. Usually those people, people that have those kind of complicated things have a good understanding of,
and they can kind of explain and break it down to you and everything.
Exactly. Or, some people just don't know what the heck, and they're like, yeah, my CPA did that, and, you got to talk to him or her. And I'm like, all right. You'd be surprised how many people don't know what the hell is going on with their taxes. Which, that's not their thing.
Yeah,
and
right.
I get it. That's why you pay somebody to do them taxes for you. I get it. Like, I don't know a lot of things.
But you should be able to kind of read the dashboard, like you should kind of know.
Yeah, you should kind of know.
That's just like my fundamental belief on almost everything. Like you got to know enough about everything to basically be able to know when somebody that's doing something for you as a professional or not, if they're doing a good job or not.
Exactly.
How do you know if whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I've had people like self-employed people like, yeah, I made $250,000. Like, oh really? Like, and I get their tax return and they
you mean revenue, dude? You mean gross sales.
Negative 10 grand. Like you didn't pay taxes on anything, so you made $0.
Yeah. Big difference. Big difference.
That getting people to understand that, like I've had friends that show me their tax. I'm like, dude, you're never going to be able to get ahead in like just leveraging your money if you don't start paying taxes.
Right.
Everybody's got to pay taxes. The whole world's got to pay taxes.
Yep.
And paying taxes is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And as my CPA tells me, if you pay a lot of taxes, that means you did well. So you should be happy. That's great.
A lot of money.
It doesn't feel great at the time, but it might not feel good when you're paying out Uncle Sam, but in actuality, if you're paying no taxes, you have to pay everything in cash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's it. You got to pay in cash. But if you show income, well, now somebody's willing to give you a loan, and now that maybe that 100 grand get you a 500 or 600 grand worth of investment, whereas your 100 grand with no taxes paid gets you 100 grand.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yep.
So
I want to take a step back real quick because I want to linger on that, like that decision of you leaving, like from being an attorney to like, were you married at the time?
No.
No.
Single.
Were you even date? Okay.
No,
So you were single. So
completely
it was
single.
solely your decision.
Solely my decision. People thought
What'd
I
you
was
feel
crazy.
at that time? Were you nervous? Were you scared? Because for anybody leaving a secure job, and especially in that realm, it's like, dude, you were still making a lot of freaking money to go jump into something that's entrepreneurial. And I'm sure it was like, commission based, right?
Yeah,
what you were jumping into.
It's 100% commission.
So what was going through your head?
I was. I'm not gonna lie. I was scared. Everybody thought I was nuts. People were telling me
That's got to make it harder, man.
Yeah. Everybody was telling me, "Don't do that. Why would you do that?" All the normal things people would say.
You went to fucking law school, bro. What are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got a lot of that, and I was like, "Listen, if this doesn't work out, I can always.
I'll be back.
I'll be back. That's it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So in that, I was scared. I was taking the risk, but at the end of the day, I was like, if I don't do it, then I'll always wonder, what if I did that? Whereas, if I do it and I fail, all right, I failed, tail between my legs, I'll just go back to being an attorney.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, that didn't work out. Let me go back to doing this and then find something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
In my, if you fail, you fail. Honestly, failure is just a product of trying. You know what I mean? If you never try, you'll never fail. And if you say you never failed, that means you never tried. You know what I mean? And to me, you're doing yourself a disservice by never trying. You gotta try, even if everyone's telling you don't do it. If you're like, I really think I can make this work.
Then you probably can, dude.
I probably can. You know what I mean? Hey, I'm 12 years later. Here I am. I'm still doing the same. I'm still doing mortgages. I'd like to say that I'm successful. I like to think I'm successful doing it. So just try.
Yeah.
And
dude, I think that's a great message for people because so many people do kind of have that itch and, they've been working a job for however long and they feel that some sort of sense of security or the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't know, what's on the other side? Maybe I do fail. But I think that's the best message to anybody is dude, you might fail, but if you believe in yourself,
you can do it.
You have a really good shot. Yeah. And worst case scenario, you go back to what you were doing anyway. Especially if you hate your fucking job.
Exactly.
If you hate what you're doing, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. It's so true because, honestly, was I motivated every morning to get up, to go into that office and just sit there and read through paperwork and do an analysis? I'm saying it now and I'm like, how the fuck did I even do that?
How did I even do it for as long as I did?
Yeah. It was just mind numbing. And, I'm a people person. I like to talk to people. If you just stick me in an office, I might shrivel up and die. You know what I mean? I need interaction. I need some action. I need something.
Yep.
And mortgages got me there. Am I going to do mortgages for the rest of my life? I don't know, but until that next opportunity comes across, that's what I'm going to be doing.
So what was that ramp period like? So you said it was around 2012 that you got into it, and it was a great offer at that time that you kind of had and everything. Was it year number one, you already were crushing it and making good money? Or was it year one was it's okay, but I think we're trending in the right direction?
Year one was actually better than year two.
Okay.
Believe it or not. Year one was, I probably didn't know any better. And it was those HARP refinances. But when I was sitting there, I was thinking to myself, well, this shit's going to end. This is not going to this is just getting in, getting easy money. And, what are you going to do with it? Because, at some point, everybody's going to be refinanced or the program's going to end. And then what? What am I going to do at that point for money? You know what I mean? How am I going to make money doing this job if there's none of these refinance, which is, it was great to get your feet wet, but it wasn't sustainable.
Right.
So in year two, I kind of started transitioning into trying to get into builder business, like being a preferred lender for builders. And that's why year 2 was worse than year 1, because I was going through a transition in my own business and kind of my mindset of what is going to be the future in this job. Like, it's not going to be, these refinances that I'm doing. It's going to be purchasing, because people are going to start purchasing homes. And that's really where, you have longevity, because refinances come and go. You know what I mean? You'll have, rates will be up, rates will come down, people will refinance, rates will go up. It's a cycle.
Yep.
And it's a business cycle. It's been going on since, they started measuring.
But when it's going, it's probably sweet.
When it's going,
right?
it's sweet. I mean, you're losing your mind because you got so much
busy,
going
right?
on. But, you need a baseline, like a sustainable baseline where you're like, all right, this is purchasing, people buying homes is where the mortgage business is, and where it's going to be, and where it always will be. So that transition period was, that took about a year. Year 3 is when I went into year 3. I was doing really well. I was at Wells at the time. Wells is a big bank. I was like, I don't know if, let me go back. Wells was great. It taught me everything about mortgages, at least initially. It was a huge company at the time. It was the number 1 mortgage lender in the country.
No crap. Okay.
Yeah, it was number 1 by far. So they were so highly regulated. Like, to get anything done with, I wouldn't say highly regulated, Wells Fargo internally. Like, in order to get a file approved, sometimes it took days, and it was just simple things. And to me, I'm like, this is not an efficient way to do mortgages. There's got to be somebody that's doing these more efficiently.
That makes sense.
So another friend of mine joined the company that I'm at now, Movement Mortgage, and he was like, "Come on here. They are efficient. They can do things quickly. Your mind will be blown." And obviously, I take everything with a grain of salt. And I was like, everybody says that. It's all bullshit. Blah blah blah. But I went anyway. You know what I mean? To check out their operations and how they, how a loan comes in, what is done, how it comes out, how quickly it does. And they were phenomenal. Like, it was better than I thought it could possibly be. And coming from Wells Fargo, because Wells Fargo is the only thing that I knew.
Right.
I didn't even think this process was possible. You know what I mean? But then I moved from Wells Fargo, and I gave up all my builder business that I had just, gotten. I actually gave it to a colleague that's a friend of mine and now works with me at Movement Mortgage. I was like, you take this business, this builder business, I'm going here, and I'm going to start all over again.
Is that something that you're like legally required to do? I never thought about that, but as you're saying it, like, if you have a client, a recurring client,
outfits like
it's
Wells
their
Fargo,
business.
It's their business.
Okay.
Just because you went out on the sales call to get it, you're selling their products. It's their client.
Hypothetically, though, what happens if that client really built a relationship with you, or felt that they had a relationship or friendship with you, and a year later they came back to you and said, "Hey, Terry, I want you to write mortgage." Like, is that a conflict of interest? Are you allowed to do it?
You're allowed to do that. At least back then, we could have done it. Movement Mortgage was very young at the time. I was actually the second or third employee for Movement in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So they were relatively new to the area. Now they're the 5th biggest mortgage company in the country, or 4th, something like that. But at the time they were not. So I was learning kind of, because I went straight from refis to builder business. Now I'm like, now I got to get realtor business, which is a whole different animal.
Of course.
So then I started, to be honest with you, I just worked my ass off. I hustled. I paid attention to everything people said. I was there whenever somebody needed me. I was there, and this was back when things were in person. 2013, 2014. People were still signing papers with a pen and all that.
Talk about inefficient.
Yeah, talk about inefficient. Now, everything's e-signed. You go to the closing table. They sign a couple notarized docs.
What closing table?
Yeah,
we don't even use closing tables, man.
Exactly, bro. It's crazy, right? But yeah, I mean, I tell you all this just to show you, within just the industry, the mortgage industry, there's so many different paths you can take. You can be a refi guy and just kill it when that boom is there, and then not do much when it's not. You could be a builder guy. You could be a realtor guy.
Yep.
I'm somewhere in between there, builder guy, realtor guy. A builder business is great. It's a little bit harder to get because it's a longer lead time.
Of course.
From the time you contact the realtor to the time they're ready to build or buy, it's a year's time. You know what I mean? But with a realtor, it's a little bit more. It's a little quicker. Your lead time is, hey, we had a good transaction. You seem to know what the hell you're doing. Let me give you a shot at one of my other buyers.
Gotcha.
It's a shorter time frame. It might be 30 days, might be 60 days, but it's definitely not a year.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
But that happened because of momentum and kind of building that book of business or whatever you want to call it.
And making it in the mortgage business today, I would say, is different than it was when I started.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It's a completely different animal. The amount of tools that people have now, you don't necessarily have to know the guidelines. I know I said that's one of the biggest. I know people, some loan officers that do pretty well. They have no idea what the hell they're doing, and they're completely stressed out. Their entire business could hang off one little thing, and they have no idea how to fix it or do anything to kind of problem solve. Issues come up. Issues always come up.
Always.
If you don't know how to attack the issue, you're kind of a fish out of water, man. You're asking people to go back to the reliance thing. You're asking other people to help you. How can I fix this? How can I do this? And you're usually, and when you're in that situation, usually short, you're not nice. You're not hey, how can you help me with this? It's more so, this is going to explode in my face. You need to help me with this now.
Yeah.
And the person that's receiving that message is like, dude, fuck you, bro.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You're demanding me to help you right now. You should have known this. You shouldn't be doing this. So that goes back to the whole thing about, relying solely on yourself initially. And then if you need help, that's when you reach out. But, doing the legwork up front is so important. But yeah, everything's digital now. Whereas when I started, everything was paperwork. So does that make a difference?
When you
It sure
started,
does.
was it, I know you said a lot of agents and everything, were most of your clients coming through agents, or was it some of it was still kind of the buyers directly knew who you were, they had an agent, and they're like, oh, no, I want to use Terry?
No, when I first started, it was leads through their internal database.
When you switched to movement.
Yeah. When I switched to movement,
because it's now, I assume it's now you're a marketing and sales guy too.
Yeah.
At Wells, you were kind of fulfillment, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I'm a marketing and sales guy,
marketing
so I
and
love
sales
getting
now.
in the nitty gritty
Yeah.
on that.
I'm not gonna lie. When I left Wells, I really didn't have much. It was.
How could you?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I didn't have much.
You had the knowledge.
I had the knowledge, and that was it. And again, I knew I could do it. I was like, I just got to figure out sales and marketing. And that's what I focused on. And I developed relationships with people. I'm an easy to talk to kind of guy. And you know what I mean? So it was easy. I don't want to say it was easy. It was natural for me to, develop relationships with people.
That makes sense.
Because, I'm an easygoing person. You know what I mean? I'm not like some high-strung, like kind of crazy I tell you how it is. You know what I mean? And I'm not aggressive about it. It is what it is. And hey, we'll fix any problems and if that come up, and if they're not fixable, I'll let you know they're not fixable. And this is the reason why. And I'm an even keel kind of person, I feel like. So relationships tend to happen naturally for me.
Yep.
So, I mean, and that's how, I got one realtor, then one person started talking to another person, then introduced to another, and then it just snowballs.
Yep.
And then you got a core group of referral partners, and really that's, they turn out to be your friends, because you spend so much time with them.
Yep.
You're just like your friends now because you're talking to them probably as much as you talk to your wife. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? During the week. So I've had some pretty strong, good relationships that, I got through this job.
I love that.
You know what I mean? And it's great. And, it's a small community, real estate's big, but it's a small community.
Yep.
So, you do well, you don't screw things up. You don't dick anyone over. You're upfront and you're straight. I mean, people are going to be like, well, did you try this, dude?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it happens almost naturally, organically. Cause I'm not a, cold call kind of person. I'm just not, that was never my thing. I never wanted to call somebody out of the blue and bother them and try to sell them on me. I'm more of a organic salesman. You know what I mean? It should come naturally. You should want to work with me as much as I want to work with you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that's always the best relationship.
It is. There's hands down, no question about it. Yep.
It's the best. Like I have a high respect for you. You have a high respect for me. We can work through any issues and any problems. And anytime you're in a bind, I'm there to help you. Anytime I'm in a bind, you're there to help me.
Yep.
And I any successful relationship, those are the ingredients.
That's the foundation of a great relationship.
You gotta, you both have a mutual kind of thing going on. And that's really how you become successful.
Mm-hmm. Man.
I mean, how did you, with all this, with your business, you probably developed relationships, right?
Lots of relationships, yeah. But and what we do specifically, it's like, that's why marketing and sales was a super deep dive for me, because the reality is most of the people that we're buying distressed houses from, they very rarely, I've had maybe a dozen over the course of 8 years where like somebody that we bought a house from referred another person to us that we bought a distressed house, because it's embarrassing. It's an emotionally draining process for them, right? It's usually there's some form of distress, right? So it's like there's no repeat business, right?
Yeah.
So I really had to dial in on the marketing and sales and figure all that crap out. Like once the lead comes in the door, which still to this day, to your point, like there's no better lead than something that comes from a referral, because it's already that position of authority. Like somebody referred Terry to me. I have a high level of respect for this person. I trust them. Therefore, I trust Terry.
Correct.
Right? So it's the same thing when we get a lead organically and everything, but it's not controllable or scalable, right?
Yeah.
But still, the process when we're doing bulk marketing of generating leads and getting them into the door, it's still the same relationship building process. 100%.
Even if you talk to somebody for 5 minutes, you're starting the foundations of a relationship.
Absolutely.
Whether you're going to end up doing a deal with them or not, if you made a good impression, you never know when that person, comes back and is like, you know what, I had a great conversation with Drew. I'm going to go back to them for X, Y, and Z reason.
Yep.
And I mean, that's got to be, we're both in sales. Sales and marketing is really, I say I'm in mortgages, but really you're in sales and marketing.
Absolutely.
Because that's how you generate your business for mortgage.
Yep.
And for you for distressed properties. And, as long as you're you make a good impression on somebody, whether they use you or not, if you're kind of like, I mean, do I get every deal that I talk to?
No, of course not.
Of course
Right.
not.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, my credit union is having this special and they're giving me this ridiculous rate that no one can match. Great, dude. Good luck.
Yep.
And if you ever need anything, let me know. Even if you have issues with your credit union, call me up. I'll help you. I'll walk you through them.
Yep. Dude.
Bro, and invariably those people will come back
Sometimes
to me.
they do and sometimes they don't,
Yeah.
but that's okay. It's
okay.
It's funny, man. Like through my experience and like training salespeople and sales teams over the years and everything, like my evolution of how I kind of coach and train through sales has changed, right? It's evolved as I learned more and everything. And it's just ironic because now it's like my onboarding process for a sales rep is almost simpler and much shorter now than it used to be years ago. Cause it's like before it was like so much training. Now it's like I almost start anyone off with like, okay, take it easy, be you. Yeah. Have a conversation with the person. And, you're going to follow a framework and you're going to ask some questions and everything to try to get them to open up. But I don't want you really reading a script and sounding like a robot. Like I want you to be you. And the way that I ask these questions are probably going to be a different way or in a different tone than the way that you ask a question. Like be you, and that's kind of the foundation of how I train anybody in a sales role today,
Yeah.
It's like, it's not a script, it's a framework, and be you.
Yeah. I mean, being genuine, I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's probably, people can smell that.
Absolutely.
If
dude, back to your point,
blah, blah.
like when we sat down talking about social media and everything and trying to leverage AI to do it and everything, like it sounds great. And then you go to do it and you're like, yeah, but people can tell, like it doesn't feel like me, man.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like me.
And people respect you if you're genuine.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They respect that and they tend to be genuine in response.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you're fake, you're reading through a script, you're robotic, nobody's really going to be paying attention to you. They just move on. You know what I mean? And
For sure.
I'll hang up the phone. They'll not care. And you're forgettable.
Absolutely.
You're completely forgettable.
Yep.
And
you're a
you
commodity.
don't.
Dude, there's a million mortgage guys in the world. There's a million realtors in the world. There's a million cash buyer wholesale companies in the world, right? It's like how you set yourself apart is those little details,
those little things. Yeah, because I mean, you're right. People there's so many
could throw a rock
us.
and hit
another whatever.
Yep.
And if you don't make yourself somehow stand out, you're just like everyone else, and that's boring.
What about tools and technology? Like, what do you leverage CRMs?
Yeah, so I use Salesforce. It's a Salesforce based CRM. It's excellent. I do, like, when somebody comes into the process of, say you get pre-approved with me, I pre-approve you, you go through, you get, a bunch of little kind of tidbits on what the process looks like throughout, kind of like you're searching for a home. So I have like automated emails that go out to people that are informative, like what to expect. And that's through my CRM system. My CRM system also, if rates fall to a certain level, it'll automatically ping people that would be eligible for refinance.
Okay.
Things like that.
Got it. Like previous clients of yours. Got it.
And if you're in that book of business, and listen, leveraging technology, yes, you do. I have all these touch points that people do that are through the pre-approval phase and, after closing, but you have no idea what a human touch in the phone call duh. I mean, you need to touch
Big
everybody. Yeah. And have your automated stuff.
Of course.
Be top of mind. Yeah, I mean, people probably get annoyed by your email, but they know it's you and it's coming from you. But when you follow all that up with a phone call or, something where it's a personal touch.
Yep.
I mean, dude, that's it. You know what I mean? That's what sets you apart.
Absolutely.
Because everyone has automation.
Yep.
It's not like a,
it's like, dude, as time has passed, it's like, it's a necessity, right? Because if you don't use it and everybody else does, you're going to get left behind,
Correct. Correct. And honestly, they're just good follow-ups. It's, those automation, it'll give you some good information, but at the same time, you still need to have a personal touch. Otherwise, people just think you're a freaking robot, and nobody wants that.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
So you need those. Technology is uber important, super important to have for efficiencies, for reminders, to stay top of mind with people. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a personal touch, all that shit doesn't matter, and you're just another fucking dude.
And that's the thing, right? Like with where we're at right now with tech and AI, dude, so many of those things that you just explained, right? The automations, essentially the entire mortgage process or the process of buying a house, selling a house, whatever. It can all be done with computers, with automations.
100%.
But I don't think it'll ever totally get to that point because the human interaction is so fucking important. So the people that do not only acknowledge how important the human level of it is, they're going to freaking thrive, man.
Oh yeah.
The people that care a lot about the relationships,
you're going to thrive.
Absolutely.
You have to be a relationship person. You cannot be like that. Early on, there was we have these mastermind things and people come with their ideas and automations and this and that, blah, blah, blah. I was never I was late to the game with automations and, Calendly freaking appointment things. I may have instituted that 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I'm relatively new because I would do everything by hand.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I would
do,
I write appointments on my calendar and, or I'd put it in Outlook and I wouldn't, a reminder task, I'd put that in. Do you want to schedule a time? When's good for you? And, you go that back and forth. But early on, somebody gave me the automation hey, you need to set up Calendly, and then from Calendly, they'll get all these texts. And then from all these texts, you'll confirm here. And then you'll finally talk to them here. I'm like, dude, if I was your customer, I would not even go past these automations. And maybe that's where I was going wrong because, what's maybe good for me is not necessarily good for everybody else.
From that perspective, it does seem like friction. It seems like it's going to slow down the process. Dude, still, Calendly is a great example. I have conversations with people sometimes, and they get frustrated because they'll be like, "Oh, Drew, when's good to meet?" or whatever. And I'm just like, here's my Calendly link, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, dude, I don't know my fucking schedule. I don't set my schedule. I don't handle it. Jess handles everything during the business day. My wife handles everything after the business day. I don't know my schedule. I don't know my calendar. So, and it sounds like just weird to people that they're like, "Oh, well, when are you free?" I'm like, I have no idea. So just go here and do it. And they're like, "Well, why can't you just tell me what time's good?" I'm like, I don't know, dude. I really don't know what time's good.
I have right now available.
That's it, man. I don't know.
I'm with you, bro. Because I'm like you. My calendar is my calendar. People... I set my Calendly out. It was the best thing I ever did, by the way.
It just seems weird at first.
It just seems weird at first. Because I always I came from the mindset, and it's not technology and all that, whatever. It's for the birds. I'm not going to do it. And then I just broke down, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Because I just give them my Calendly, and people just make appointments.
Yes.
And it's cool.
It just pops up.
It just pops up.
Just get on whenever you got to get on.
Because, and what got me to do that, and it's trivial, like I would send, somebody would call me like, when are you available? I'm available tomorrow at, between this and this. Well, I'm not available.
That's when it's like I draw the line. It's like,
okay. Well then, I'm available on Friday between this date and then
I'm not.
Yeah. And then you're going through this whole exercise where I could just be like, hey, here's a link. Schedule whatever time you want.
Everybody's busy these days. So,
everybody's busy. And
short of, let's talk right now. It's like, just use some sort of booking service.
I mean, it's efficient. I don't think people mind it that much. Yeah, I had like some trepidation with it. Maybe, that was probably before COVID. But I've seen the light.
Yep.
And technology is your friend, not your foe.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I now try to take advantage of every efficiency possible that technology offers.
Yep.
I mean, it makes your day go by faster. It makes your process that much smoother. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, technology is an important thing to run your business, like taking advantage of all the different things that are available to you, for sure.
Yep.
I mean, it helps you see more people. You know what I mean? It just helps you get in front of more people, for sure.
What's your take on the current economic state and how kind of that correlates to mortgages, maybe some stuff with tariffs? There's a whole lot going on right now, it's
there's a lot to go through. So let's take it, piece by piece. From a mortgage perspective, I think based on the policies, like I watch the Treasury Secretary, Bissett, a lot. I think he's a brilliant dude. His focus, which I think should have been the focus long ago, is to get the 10-year Treasury down. And the reason for that is that's what mortgage rates are based on. And why is that important? Honestly, our economy is, in my opinion, centered around real estate.
Absolutely.
It's the epicenter of our economy, real estate.
It touches every person, touches every industry.
So if real estate is doing well, the entire economy is doing well. That they go hand in hand. So they want to. That's how you start a real estate boom. Get mortgage rates down. Between refinancing and getting people more money in their pockets every month, between allowing people to get into a house, all of these things, like building more houses, like all of it, create jobs, create incentives for people, helps people realize that American dream that everyone keeps talking about. I mean, having a house is like the first step into wealth creation. Without that, you don't get to the next step.
Yep.
That is your first step. Your next step might be investment properties, might be stocks, might be X, Y, and whatever it is.
Yep.
Your first step is having a home base.
You need that. And dude, it is like, it's legitimately harder now than it's probably ever been for somebody to make that first step, to buy their first house. And like, I've thought about this, fairly deeply, and I don't know, I'm no, master economist, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the fucking answers are. I don't even know what a step in the right direction is.
Well,
because when we talk about healthy real estate, like that usually correlates to prices going up, values going up and everything. And okay, maybe rates going down, but we also want values to go up for it to be considered healthy, right?
Yeah.
But that makes affordability still a challenge.
Affordability is a challenge for sure. Now, how do you tackle affordability? It's a supply and demand issue, right? We have a very small supply of homes. Like I think one of the charts showed this. So if you go to, like, all right. So this one
Prepared with
right
the
here.
charts. Oh, yours are colored? No,
Yeah.
man. I'm going to have
So-
to yell at Jess, printing them in black and
Just
white
to go
for me.
back, because people get very like, oh my God, the real estate market's going to crash because values have gone up so dramatically in the last couple of years. They're bound for a correction. And, they always point to the Great Recession in 2007 for that basis.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Well, if you look at it a little bit more closely, you'll see in like 2007, there was inventory of 4 million houses available. There wasn't enough people to buy all those houses.
Okay.
All right. Compare it to 2023, where there's 1 million houses available and there's a 5 million unit shortage. So when you say affordability and look at it from that perspective, the supply and demand perspective, how do you tackle affordability? You have to get more houses online. More supply.
Right.
Now, does the supply have to be, low income, workforce type housing? Yeah, probably. It probably is. And, will those people that are now looking at, homes in the 150, 160, 170, those people, will they be step-up buyers?
Right.
Yeah, they'll be step-up buyers. But those homes are a very finite amount.
Of course.
You need new housing.
Yeah.
And that's how you get affordability down. Obviously, making mortgage rates lower will make houses more affordable, but it'll also push values higher.
Of course.
Because, again, the reason for that, when you push mortgage rates lower, reason why more values of homes get higher is because more people can now afford that house. So more people are bidding on that house,
with you.
which takes the price higher, which is what we saw in COVID. Like, we saw a mass exodus from cities, trying to buy houses in the suburbs. There was only a finite amount of houses in the suburbs. People were doing
paying for everything.
doing ridiculous things, waiving inspections, going 150 over ask, all cash deal, whatever you want. It was insane.
Yep.
And that's a byproduct of, the inventories, especially in the Northeast, like this area, like PA, Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, this kind of pocket. There's new construction, but there's not enough.
Not a lot, yeah.
Not enough. Like, I was looking just in this area, Philadelphia County has some new construction. There's not a lot of workforce housing where you say, all right, you can buy a house for $250,000, which I think is probably a reasonable amount of money to buy, a house. They all have workforce housing, at least in Philly, for that much, $250,000. You buy a nice house, there's some restrictions on selling it, but you're getting a house. What was I going with this? So where was I going with this?
There's a lot of different directions to go with it, and I have so many questions.
I completely lost my train of thought, but go ahead with the questions.
That's okay. Story of my life. Go ahead.
New construction.
New construction.
So in Philadelphia, there's a lot of new construction. A lot of it's very freaking expensive. They're not.
It's not like starter homes.
No.
Yeah.
None of them are starter homes.
Yep.
You go into the burbs. Kind of, maybe if you go in the Northeast, there's more starter homes available. But if you go Montgomery County, Delaware County, Chester County, they're not starter homes that they're building.
No. Well, that's the thing. How do you profitably build a starter home right now?
That's the issue. The cost of building a house is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. Even if you're going to build it yourself, like say I want to get a plot of land and build a house on that. You're paying $200,000, $300,000, a square foot to build it yourself.
Yep.
Let alone, you might have to buy a house, for, at least in the burbs, say you buy it for 400,000, the house is shit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? In the suburbs, in the immediate vicinity of Philadelphia, a $400,000 house is not giving you much. You have to put another 200,000, 300,000 into it.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, you're paying probably 500-600 square foot for that same house. But there's not enough land, where are you going to build that house? The cost of land plus the cost of materials. I mean, it's getting absurd. Now, if what is happening economically gets, fuel prices lower, gets material costs lower, gets everything, the components of building a house lower, then you will see, people building starter homes, people, building homes that are much more affordable, because the reason why people are buying or building million, 800 is because that's where the money is.
That's where the money is.
I mean, you're not, that's where if I was a builder, am I going to build a house that's going to make me 20 grand?
Yep.
Or am I going to build a house that's going to make me 100 grand? It's
very simple.
It's very simple.
Yep.
I mean, nobody's giving me, I'm going to probably do just about the same work, spending just about the same time building this house that's going to give me 20 grand as I'm going to building this house giving me 100 grand.
No doubt.
So why would I choose to build the 20 grand house? Nobody will.
Yep.
So I am optimistic that everything that's going on is going to lower prices and then, lower rates. Lowering rates is the first step, because you lower rates, you're lowering borrowing costs, not only for a buyer, but for a developer. You know what I mean? And that goes into their cost.
Absolutely, it does.
The carrying cost.
Especially the big builders, right? It's like they're buying down rates and everything, right? So it's like that's actually kind of baked in.
So I mean, you start lowering costs like that, and then you get the materials low. You'll start seeing builders want to build starter homes.
Again, to your point of people always pointing back to 07, 08.
Bro, that'll
no
never
correlation
happen
to
I'll give you another reason why that, other than the obvious of the supply and demand. Back then, from what I've read, because I wasn't in the mortgage industry.
In it yet. Yeah.
I wasn't in it yet.
If you were, you probably would have made a lot of friggin' money, man.
I always kick myself like, damn, I should have done this years ago.
I could have given mortgages to anybody.
It was kind of like, when I was reading about it, I was kind of like shocked that what was going on. Like, literally, people were giving mortgages out to everyone, whether they had income or not.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like disturbing. Like, how are they hedging all this risk? And it's kind of mind-boggling to think about, because you have big companies like Lehman Brothers, AIG, Citibank, like JP Morgan.
Too big to fail mentality, man.
Yeah, all these guys are investing money in mortgages that they know, because they wrote the mortgages.
Backed by nothing.
Backed by nothing. Like, these people, if they had a pulse, like I was reading, like they were giving mortgages out to dogs. Like, it was nuts.
I believe it, man.
So,
those types of things are not happening.
Not happening at all. Yeah. Like, if you're getting approved for a mortgage, it's because you can afford to pay it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yep. It's not because we have to give away this house.
We finagled the paperwork here and submitted it's done and it's approved.
And back then, when you have this like large inventory, and people are just like, I need to offload this. Like, who can we sell this to?
Yep.
And just take it, and move on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That will never happen the way the lending guideline framework is. I mean, in my opinion, it's way too strict. Like, way too strict. But we also have the lowest amount of foreclosures like in history since these rules have been instituted.
Right.
So, in a way it's good. In a way it's a bit of a pain in the ass because sometimes, kind of form gets lost or substance gets lost to form. You know what I mean? Like you have somebody that's, good, but maybe shows paper losses on their homes. And, it's a very small minority of people, but they exist. You show paper losses, or you have the guy that, gets tips, but makes freaking $1,000 a week in tips, but it's all cash tips.
Yep.
And the system's not made up for cash. Like,
That's right.
Like the regulators do not like cash.
Well, I wonder why.
Yeah, they bro. I had this guy, and he had saved. He's talking. It's like, I'm gonna buy this house. I'm saving up. Blah blah blah. I didn't ask, where are you saving this up? He was like, he went under contract. He's like, I was like, all right, so send me the bank statements that have your cash.
Where's the money?
He's like, well, there's not. It's.
I can send you a picture.
It's cash, and I'm like, what do you mean it's cash? He's like, I was like, you don't have it in the bank account? I mean, this was like $70,000. Like he was telling me, and I'm like, dude, where did this money come from?
Yeah.
Turns out he had cashed in like a 401k, was keeping the
physical cash, yeah.
The physical cash.
Yeah.
Because this was
But you were able to, kind of reverse engineer, get a paper trail.
We were able to reverse engineer it and things like that. Good. But, when I was like I was talking to an underwriter about it, they're like, dude, cash means absolutely nothing to us.
Yep.
Well, I don't know, where do you get the cash from? And then we, now getting documentation from like a year ago of the money that was taken out. And not only that, the amounts have to match like identically.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I took out $50,000. I have $50,000.
Yep.
If I have $50,000 in 2 cents, it doesn't match.
Right.
It's no good.
Yep. That's a nightmare. Yep, I get it.
So
that's a fun one right there.
Yeah,
that's a fun one.
That threw me for a fucking curveball for sure. But that's when I needed help. Like I was like, where does this curveball come from? But
did you get that deal closed?
Got it closed. Amen, dude.
That's what matters, man.
You get approved, you're gonna get closed. That's all that matters. But it was a definite learning opportunity because now I ask, is the money you have money saved? Is the money in the bank account?
Right.
You know what I mean? That one mistake, me not asking a question, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Could have created an issue.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Thank
big
God
issue,
we worked through it.
Yep.
But now, if you don't learn, you got to learn from your mistakes. So I didn't ask that one little question. Is the money in the bank?
Different way that you ask
now. Now I ask the question. Where is the money? That the 5-word question can save you a lot of headaches.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
So what's prime today? I don't even know.
7.5.
7.5. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
7.5.
Gotcha.
Or 7.5.
And you're not only writing loans for like homeowners, home buyers, you're also doing like investor loans and stuff too, right?
Yeah. Like we do, investor loans are probably just as popular right now. Probably because people understand that real estate is the best store of wealth you could probably have. It's so you have a lot of people, maybe they have cash. They don't want to go into the stock market because it's volatile. I mean, real estate's where it's at.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Everybody's always going to need a home to live in. Everybody's always going to need a home to vacation at. Everybody's going to always need a home to live in. You know what I mean? Like the homes are going to be in demand. And like we said, there's a shortage. So if you're an investor, you're buying real estate and the real estate's going to appreciate in value.
Yep.
What's that? I think there's another chart. Real estate's 70 over the last 81 years since 1941. It's been positive 73 years, -7, and flat 1 year. I mean, that's
wild.
a pretty.
That's wild to think about.
It's a wild thing to think about. You know what I mean? If you're an investor and somebody says, I got an investment for you, and 73 out of the last 81 times it made money.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, dude, fucking sign me up.
What's safer than that, right?
Sign me up.
Yep.
And 5 out of those 7 years is the Great Recession. So, and the other 2 years, I think it lost -1. Yeah, it was -1. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. It's crazy.
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
Yeah,
you know what I
man.
mean? It's crazy to think about. But yeah, we do. And investor loans are becoming much more popular, especially in like the debt service coverage ratio world, which is, you know, probably better known as DSCR. I see a lot of first-time investors getting into like this DSCR. And if it's not going to bore you to death, I can tell you how
please,
DSCR. I believe DSCR was kind of reborn. So Fannie Mae and the regulators, Fannie and Freddie, changed one small rule. They made it used to be that your second home was akin to your primary residence. That was always the rule until COVID happened and Airbnb exploded. Now your second home could be rented out. So a lot of people were renting out their second home. And basically it was an investment property.
Right.
So the regulators were like, guess what? We're no longer treating your second home akin to a primary residence. Now we're going to treat it like an investment property. So it has all the rates of an investment property, all the requirements of an investment property, save for, down payment. You can put as little as 10% on a second home. The rate's probably going to be disaster, but you could do it.
Yep.
Right? So with that, I think now DSCR, which was, all right, now all I need to do is prove rental income and have down payment and a credit score.
Yep.
And I don't have to deal with all the BS with getting, investment property to see if I qualify for it. And second home, if I qualify for the second home with carrying my, primary residence, I won't be put through the ringer.
Yep.
Rates are pretty much.
Dude, rates are very
probably similar. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But these DSCR loans, they obviously perform well because otherwise the rates would not be similar.
Yep.
And they wouldn't be offering them as much as they are. And listen, on a Fannie and Freddie originated investment property loan, 20% down is going to be not a good rate, and you're probably going to be paying points. If you do it on the debt service, 20% down, you can probably get it with no points. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit higher rate, but it's going to be cheaper for you to do. At 25% down, that's kind of for investment property, that's your sweet spot. You want to do it, if you want to get a great rate, great terms, 25% down, that's where you want to be.
Got it.
You know what I mean? With a DSCR or like a traditional like mortgage through the regulators. Then you ask, like, why would you ever do a mortgage for an investment property and not go DSCR? Honestly, only answer to that question is because the rent is not going to cover the mortgage payment. And that would be the only reason.
Makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's usually maybe you are doing like 15% down on like a second home, and it's going to be like a short-term rental, and all you really want to do is, make some of your money back to offset the cost of your second home, but you're not going to be renting it out. Maybe you'll be renting it out, 3 months out of the year, and the rest of the time it's going to be yours.
Yep.
Then you could go second, traditional mortgage based solely on your income and your assets and things like that. I mean, that's really the only time where I would say, yeah, you get a second home mortgage or a investment property mortgage through the regulators. DSCRs, it's simple, it's quick. I mean, bro, they've exploded. I've done more of those what are quote unquote called non-QM mortgages in the last year than I did my entire career.
No crap.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. And non-QM just means like it's not a qualified mortgage, and a qualified mortgage there's a definition for it by regulation, and it meets all the regulatory requirements, and then it's considered a qualified mortgage. These DSCR loans, and so there's bank statement loans for self-employed people that, maybe they write a shit ton of expenses off, and they don't show, a net income that's acceptable to traditional lending. Well, where some of these non-QM lenders will look at your cash flow in your business bank statements, they'll say, all right, you have deposits of, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, of $100,000, right, throughout the year. You're in construction business, so your expense ratio is probably 50%. So your income is $50,000 a year. No bank, no tax returns, no anything.
Yep.
It's, what's your cash flow?
Right. Right.
Those loans are big too.
They're probably more expensive than the DSCR loans, though, right?
No.
Okay.
They're about the same. Sometimes, maybe a little bit better, because they are. I'm looking at it from a risk profile. If you're telling me from a risk profile, I have 12 months of bank statements from this person that's self-employed, and they're showing cash flow of,
you can see it.
You can see it. Mm-hmm. Whereas in a DSCR loan, it's probably a higher risk product because you don't know.
Rent could go to zero.
Yeah, rent could go to zero. And you don't know if this guy or this gal
He's an experienced landlord, can kick someone the fuck out and get the eviction done. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the bank statement loan probably less of a riskier mortgage.
That makes sense.
From the lender perspective.
Got it.
You also have, I don't want to bore you with all these things, but it's interesting to know what they've come out with, since the great, recession where there was no mortgages for anybody.
Everything's always changing all the time, right? Like I was just having a conversation with a buddy of mine the other day, and he was saying like how he had not looked at DSCR loans in like 10 years. And he's like, because in my mind, he's a little bit older. He's been doing it longer than me.
Yeah.
He's like, I remember DSCR loans fucking sucked and they were super expensive. Like nobody wanted to do a DSCR loan. I'm like, well, that's before my time, I guess, because I've always done DSCR loans,
They're simple.
Yeah.
They have P&L loans. They have 1099 loans where people aren't, they're not necessarily looking at your taxes. They're more looking at your the cash flow of your business, or your the 1099 income, your cash flow, your personal cash flow.
Right.
So, for people that are even like, they're like, yeah, I make money, but my taxes don't show that I make money. You can still get a house. You can still get a mortgage. There's avenues for you. If you're buying a primary residence, that cost for that mortgage is substantially higher than a traditional primary residence mortgage.
Makes sense.
But, all the money that you saved on taxes, now...
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. You pay one way or another, dude.
You're going to pay
right?
one way or another.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, you're not going to pay Uncle Sam. You're going to pay somebody else.
That's right, man.
You can't avoid it. Dude. You know what I mean? Again, unless you're all cash and you have money to burn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, there's not that many people out there like Elon that can just,
not
write
quite.
a check. Yeah.
Not quite. Dude, it was funny. I saw like a meme or something the other day that it was just like a simple math, meme, if you will, but it was basically like it's really incomprehensible how much money, like whatever his net worth probably just dropped, right?
Yeah.
But around $400 billion, right? But it was like it made me think. It was I'm gonna fuck this up here, but it was basically like if you were born. Oh man, I'm gonna mess it up. I know it, but like if you were born, in year one, like 2024 years ago, and you got $1 million every day since then, you still would not have like that level of wealth. It's like, wow, that really puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
2025 years later, getting $1 million a day, and I still wouldn't have achieved that level of wealth.
Isn't that that's mind blowing? It's
incomprehensible.
Mind blowing.
Yep.
And
but most people also can't wrap their head around. They think that he's sitting on physical piles of cash and tractor trailers of cash. They don't understand the business dynamics and everything, and that's not liquid, right? Like
it's not. It's all paper money.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's money in the computers. You know what I mean. That's all it is. I mean, you can make the argument that all our money is just. It's not fiat. It's just there.
Also accurate.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Also accurate, right?
Like, how much money do I have in cash? Not much, and everything's in the bank.
Yep.
And did you ever try to go to the bank and take out
all the time?
A large
Drives
amount
me
of
nuts.
cash?
Yep.
And they're like, "Well, you need to call.
Yeah.
You need to call before."
Dude, not even a large amount. Like if you try to get $5,000 out of the bank, they're like, "Whoa, what are you doing with this money?" It's like. It's not that much money. Like,
Bro.
I can't even go buy a shitty used car with it.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean?
Exactly. It's nuts because I literally got $5,000 out because we were going on vacation. And I was like, for vacation, I like to have cash on me because credit
Just in
cards
case.
don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah, credit card gets canceled, whatever, won't work. I get
dude.
it.
Whatever thing can happen, I always want to have cash on vacation. And the lady, dude, literally handed me 3 brochures to beware of scams and things like that. I'm like,
I think I'll be okay.
I'm like, the lady was giggling because I was kind of like, really? Like, don't give my money to literally it said, don't give my money to a stranger.
Thank you much. Thank you very much.
You need people. Do people really need this instruction?
Well, if they have a large sum of money, the answer is probably not.
Yeah,
but.
It's to me, it's just mind-boggling. Like maybe I'm naive. Maybe they're naive. I don't know who's naive, but it's crazy how the bank is telling people to be careful with their own money.
Yeah.
Because it might get stolen.
Well, you know where that's kind of stemming from. It's stemming from I want to instill fear in the clients of our bank because I want you to keep your fucking money in here. I don't want you to take it out.
Exactly.
That's probably a lot of it. Dude. That reminds me. Thinking of cash, I had this one deal that I bought actually in Havertown during COVID, and for whatever reason, like I was super like cash strapped at the I shouldn't say that. I did have physical cash. I didn't have money in the bank for like the money that I was putting down as the down payment on this deal or whatever. So I basically called the title company. I was like, hey, I forget what it was. I think like I had to bring $80,000 to this settlement or something. And I only had like $20,000 in my bank account at that time. And I was like, hey, I got to bring $60,000 in cash to this settlement. They're like, yeah, you're not fucking doing that. I was like, well, I need to do something. Like I had the money, I need to bring it. What do I do? They're like, go to our bank and deposit it in our bank because we just don't want the liability. We don't want the risk, whatever. Dude, so it's COVID. I drive up to this bank. I forget what branch it was, but obviously they don't have the inside open. So I have to put $10,000 bands through the fucking tube. And dude, I am crapping myself. I'm like, for one, I feel like, like the government's going to roll up on me any minute and be like, why do you have this much cash, But like just pushing that button and watching it go into the tube, like underground. I'm like, what if this gets stuck? Like I got this settlement in 20 minutes. What's going to happen,
Exactly.
And it worked. Everything was fine. But it's like, I just remember that feeling that I had, like, that I was doing something wrong, having this much cash. Yeah. And it's like, how do you have this? And it's like, dude, for me, it was very similar. It was like, well, every deal that we closed like that year prior, like I took $5,000 of it and I put it in a safe, It's like, whatever.
And honestly,
but it's frowned upon.
Yeah. As a kid, I was taught to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? To put cash aside.
Yep.
And, you always, like my father always told you need to have cash.
Yep.
You always need to have cash.
Yep.
I don't know, maybe because they're immigrants and they have a natural distrust for institutions.
And I get that.
But yeah.
And now most of that's gone though. Like most of us are just like, yeah, dude, everything's digital. To that point, dude, I just made a post about it on Facebook. Like I got dozens of notifications like from, high risk accounts that I have online, PayPal, my AWS, like web servers and everything, like all password vulnerability stuff, like in the last day. And I'm like, holy shit, man. And with the rise of AI and everything, like hackers are figuring out how to get your passwords, how to get your accounts, how to get all this stuff.
It is nuts,
scary, dude.
It's scary. And dude, my identity was stolen. And how I found out was very interesting. So I got a letter from Lowe's, which I never go to Lowe's. I'm a Home Depot person. That's what's convenient for me. Maybe I walked into a Lowe's twice in my life, right? I opened up the letter and it said that I was denied for credit because I had unsubstantiated documents. I'm like, oh, fuck. So I ended up, not to make this a commercial about LifeLock, I ended up calling LifeLock.
Today's approved vendor, LifeLock.
Plug. No. They were excellent. So I had to put like a fraud alert on my credit. And I locked all my credit. Drew, I was getting letters. Luckily nothing was stolen from me. That's the best thing.
It's a blessing, yeah.
Yeah. But I was getting letters for 6 months after that for business loans being denied, for credit cards being denied. Now it was because your credit is locked and we need you to unlock your credit in order for you to get the access to this money.
How long ago was this?
2022, 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago. I could have sworn, and this is all allegations, but allegedly, I think that it happened because I called to switch my cable, and it was some dude in India, and I was really I was having a bad day, and I probably took it out on him, and he was probably pissed off.
He's like, I'm gonna get you.
Like, I'm gonna get you, motherfucker.
Show you, man.
Because he had my date of birth, he had my social security number, he had everything.
Oh, man.
And bro, I don't know. I was definitely probably having a bad day because we just built the house, and we were having things with the builder, and getting to closing, work, and all. And I had this dude breaking my balls about my cable, and I flipped out on him. And I remember thinking, that wasn't fair. Like, I shouldn't have done that. But I never thought of it again.
Takeaway there. Karma's a motherfucker.
That motherfucker. I'm like, that dude probably fucking took my social security and sold that to whoever he wanted to. But I mean, allegedly.
I don't want to
call. I don't want to make it.
Him. It was him.
It was innocent. Man. Maybe he's innocent. Maybe. I doubt it.
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
It is crazy though. Like with just the thought of how dependent we are on technology and banking systems and all of that. Like,
it's crazy,
dude. If there was some sort of cyber attack, like tomorrow, You know, most people, because we've been trained, don't carry cash.
Yeah.
Cash is bad, you know? Like, most people wouldn't be able to sustain a week.
Yeah.
You know? Like, if you just
Absolutely
don't
not.
have... I'm not talking about everything getting wiped out,
Yeah.
but it's like, you know, bank servers are offline. They don't know how much money you have. It's still there. But
They
you
really
can't-
don't know.
Yeah.
They don't. They really don't.
What do you do, man?
Exactly. What do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, I
guess at that point, though, you also don't have bills to pay, right?
I guess not. You know what I mean? How can they find you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Weird thought.
It's nuts, and I knock on wood that never happens. But with AI, everything's going to change.
Yep.
I mean, everything. And I'm kind of in agreement that, everybody's going to have to find something that they absolutely love doing that AI cannot do. What that is, God only knows, but at least, our kids are going to be dealing with that problem.
Yeah.
We may
It's going to
not.
become an existential crisis, dude.
Yeah.
Like a philosophical, freaking...
Because what's your
Exactly.
What's your purpose?
Yep.
We all have a purpose. Like, I go to work. I make money.
You help people
I help
find
people.
home. Yeah.
Yeah. I do that for my kids, so they can grow
It's
up
fulfilling.
well.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Once you have AI and everyone has an AI, now your AI can fucking do everything.
Yeah.
Everything that you can do.
Other than, like we said, that human level
Yeah.
connection, man. But a lot of people just are not naturally born that way. And maybe they're a little standoffish or I'm more of an introvert and I just don't want to talk to people and everything. Like, dude, they're going to have to adapt, man. And to that point, I would definitely classify myself as an introvert and I do extroverted shit all the time, so
Exactly.
figure it out, adapt,
Everyone is going to be able to adapt. And you know what? You, at that point, I think no one's going to have an excuse. What else are you going to do?
You got to.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
People were like, I was reading or I was listening to Musk on one of the, I don't know which interview he was giving, but he was saying literally, everyone will have a robot.
Yeah.
And that robot will literally be able to make anything for you.
Yeah.
Like you want a notebook, you give them the materials, they'll make a notebook.
Yep.
You want a pencil, make a pencil. He's like, you will not need anything other than the raw materials.
Right.
So everyone, and I agree with him, everyone's got to find that thing, whatever it is, that purpose, because that's what people are gonna miss out on.
Dude, it's gonna be a real challenge.
Depressing.
Yeah.
Because you take people that work in the assembly line at a car factory. Mm-hmm. That job's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That job for sure is gone.
Yep.
The only way that it's not gone is if somehow they negotiate, we need to have a human for every two robots
oversee,
or something.
right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's gonna inevitably happen some point in the future.
Phased out over time too.
Yeah.
And from an engineering perspective, they've said one of the biggest issues over the last few years, as technology has kind of exploded with AI and everything, the biggest issue is we already have the compute and the intelligence to be able to perform almost any task, but our entire world is obviously optimized for the human experience, right?
Yes.
It's cars, curbs, stairs, you name it, it's all optimized for the human experience. So as soon as they do a really good job of integrating that technology into a robot with a human form factor, dude, that's kind of game over in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's I don't know if scary is the right word, but maybe it is scary to think about what's going to happen. How are people going to? What are they going to be doing for work? What kind of jobs are they going to be?
Dude, that's why that
available?
conversation of universal basic income is
yeah, I mean, it's
a conversation needs to be had now.
But who determines that?
I know.
You know what I mean? And that's what's kind of scary, that's what's more scary to me. Like when you start talking about universal income, like who determines that income? Who controls that income?
Challenging.
You know what I mean? Like, is the government really going to control how much money they're giving me based on what? You know, what criteria? And it starts becoming almost communistic. You know what I mean?
Because ultimately, like the reason that we're progressing forward with all the technology stuff that we are today is like, it seems like progress.
Yeah.
Right. It seems like we're innovating. We're going to other fucking planets, you know.
Yeah.
Elon's catching rockets out of the air.
Yeah,
like,
literally.
You know, it's insane. It seems like progress, but it does raise like those philosophical questions of, is it progress? Because if we take away people's purpose, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if we can philosophically adapt to that. Like,
I don't know. I don't know if we'll know the answer to that. I mean, hopefully, AI will just be utilized for making things that much more convenient rather than replacing the human. Because at the end of the day, man, I mean, you know, you have a construction worker that, you know, it's the middle America is what's really going to suffer in that kind of AI robot employees.
Right.
Because you're going to have everything from electricians to plumbers to roofers to, you know, people that work in assembly lines. Like, I saw a robot on one of the freaking things where it was one robot. He could carry like 500 pounds, jump from one thing to another. And who cares about safety? It's a fucking robot. Yeah. If it falls,
if it
breaks,
dies, it dies.
Yeah. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about OSHA and all this other stuff.
Well, like, and that's the thing, though, when you look at it from that perspective, because I think it's a, I don't know, like a productive thought to be like, well, of course, we just want to use it to supplement humans and make things easier and safer and stuff like that. But when you start to break it down, it's like, well, who's going to be implementing these systems, these robots, these softwares? It's business owners. And very simply, when you look at it from that perspective, just like you said, if I'm a builder developer, am I going to build the house where I can make 100 grand, or I'm going to build the house where I can make 20? Of course, I'm going 100 grand all day long. Yeah. So if you're telling me that the first iteration of these Tesla Optimus robots are going to be $30,000-$40,000, and it's like, dude, I have a construction company, and it's like, even if it does a tenth of what one of my guys does, it's like I'm making a $30,000 investment. It's going to pay itself off in 5 years. Like, of course, I'm going to. I have to. Yeah. I have to.
Yeah.
You know, because everything else, all the other economic pressures are coming down on us too, right?
Yeah.
It's like things are harder, things are expensive. You know.
I mean, to that end, you got to figure at that point, how cheap will everything be? You know what I mean?
Right.
If I don't have to pay as a manufacturer of goods, if I don't have to pay human capital, you know, I don't have to pay employees, I don't have to pay employee tax, I don't have to pay health insurance, I don't have to pay fucking shit.
Yep.
You know, I have to pay for the raw materials and the cost to keep up my robots.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep.
I mean, things should be tremendously cheaper.
And I think that's part of like the big picture of the universal basic income thing. It's like, in theory, if everything is able to be produced or had, anything you could desire, you could have for really, really, really inexpensive. It's like, who cares if I only make $10,000 a year? Because I can buy almost anything I want and do anything I want whenever I want because I don't have a job, right? If everybody has that, but dude, that's a massive shift from what society has always been. So
it's a huge shift. Because we're going to go from rat race, you know what I mean? Everybody get to, you know, you got to get to this goal. You got to do this thing in order to succeed. Then it's going to be like, there's really nothing for you to fucking do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the philosophical question. Like, when people don't have anything to do, what are they going to do?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
And, you know, they say like old people that, you know, people live longer when they have a purpose and they get up for a job, for whatever it is, to watch their grandkids, to keep up their garden, whatever the fuck that purpose is.
Yep.
People tend to live longer. You take that purpose away, I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, but, who knows? Because that
right.
mindset of,
Right.
Terry
We're trained this way.
Yeah, we're trained this way.
Yep.
Our kids are not going to be trained this way at all.
Yep.
They're going to have a different perspective on everything.
They're
going to look back at us and like, look at those suckers. They worked, 60, 70 hours a week, and we don't have to do any of that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and maybe everybody will be an intellectual, and you know what I mean? It'll be like free thought, and it'll be ancient Greece and fucking Socrates and Plato.
Who knows, man?
Who knows? You know what I mean? Who knows? I mean,
what are the values that you want to instill on your kids? If you had to pick like, one or two values that you could pass on to your kids.
I mean, there's so many. If I get it down to a couple, first I would say respect. I think respect goes to treating people fairly and the way you want to be treated, and that in turn is just good karma. You treat everyone with respect. I think that's one thing that my father drilled into me is respect. Respect your elders, respect your wife, respect your kids. They will in turn respect you, and they'll look at you with respect.
Yep.
And I think that's big. A lot what's
that's huge.
Missing.
So much ties into that.
And that I feel like a lot of youth is missing that. Mm-hmm. From what I've seen, like growing up, like we would be scared of the adults. You know what I mean? Like we didn't fuck around in front of adults. Like we did that, in our by ourselves. Nowadays, like kids, I see are fucking with adults.
Absolutely. And just to get a rise out of them, to get them. Yeah.
It's nuts, and it's not right. You know what I mean? It's just not right. It's not the way a civilized society should operate. You know what I mean? Like, so respect would be number one. Number two would probably be a sense of being humble and not being, kind of, show-offy. Like, you know what I mean? Just being humble in what you do.
I love that.
Because, anyone can go up there and pound their chest and be like, I'm the best and nobody can beat me and all that. Anyone can do. I could do that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I could go up there and do it. But I think it takes a really special person to be that person and not, shout it from the towers.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
It takes, I would have much more respect for somebody like, for a Tom Brady, for instance, and I'm a Eagles fan through and through, but like a Tom Brady kind of guy to say like, yeah, you're the best, but you never heard this dude talk shit.
Hymns, yeah.
And you never heard him talk shit about anyone else other than to say pleasant things, say how good the other person is. And he knows he's the best.
Right.
He knows, like hands down, no one can, it's undeniable. I think people like that are truly special, and it's not that often that you see that, especially
Agreed.
in today's world. And social media, like look at me, blah blah. Like, dude, that stuff goes away.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Like maybe somebody will care for like an hour or 2 hours or a day or 2 days or 3 weeks. That's not lasting. You know what I mean? That's not being good at what you do and being humble about it. I think it is a good approach, and you'll probably get noticed more with a more lasting impression than you would if you're verbose and all this crap. And I guess everything else falls under, I try to teach my girls exactly what my parents taught me. I think they, did a good job not to,
Absolutely.
but, being polite, having respect, being humble, working hard, don't look down on people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be judgmental. You don't know where everyone, where that person is coming from.
Yep.
Those are kind of things that I feel like, used to be kind of like automatic.
Yeah. It's like it was culture.
Yeah, it was just culture.
And now
it's
it's missing a lot. It really is.
I mean, being judgment, and that goes back to maybe what we were talking about earlier, like this whole, the whole dynamic between left and right and, political and non-political and all these people, like the fact that people don't respect each other enough to be able to sit down and have like a conversation, be like, hey, you have good ideas. Hey, I have good ideas. Maybe we should talk about what we agree on rather than what we disagree on. Right. You know what I mean? Like that used to be a thing. You know what I mean? Like people used to do that all the time. Like I used to be able, like, doesn't matter what political affiliation I was, doesn't matter what political affiliation someone else was. We used to be able to hang out, talk shit about each other, and that's it. Yep. You know what I mean? And I respected your opinion, you respected my opinion, and that was it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there was no like bad blood and all this other stuff. And it goes back to like, I think like not being judgmental. You don't know how I came to what I believe in. I don't know how you came to what you believe in. And whatever you believe in, awesome, great. Maybe hear me out on this, this, and this. And I'll hear you out on whatever you have to say.
Right.
And, hey, I might agree, I might disagree, but it doesn't matter. We're still cool. Yep. You know what I mean? And that was always an automatic thing. But nowadays, I mean, if I told somebody I was, I voted for Harris or I voted for Trump, I mean, I'm going to get two like crazy people, telling me how wrong I am on either spots. Yep. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't be that way. It's, who we have in office right now, everyone should be hoping for his success.
Success, right. No matter what.
No matter what. He's in there. Yep. Why are you wanting him to fail? If he fails, we're in a shit ton of problems.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So irrespective of who you voted for, what you believe in, you want whatever is happening right now to succeed.
Absolutely.
That's what that should be your default.
It's funny though, because I know that I forget who it was or when it was done, but there was like a psychological study related to like stock traders, right? And it was basically that the triggers that go off in your mind, like let's say that you had a stock and you plan to sell at this limit, this threshold, whatever, but you forgot to set that limit. And that stock did exactly what you thought that it was going to do, but you didn't sell and you lost money as a result of it. Most of the time in the studies that they did, the people that lost money but were right had a better emotional response to it than otherwise. And it's like,
get out of here. That's interesting.
But that just goes to like, as humans, we value being right more than the benefit of the outcome of whatever we're talking about. You know what I mean? And it's a really weird thing.
That's an interesting study. That's crazy, but to me,
I've had it happen to me. Yeah. Like I've done stupid things where it's like I was right, but I missed it and I lost money as a result of it. But I feel good because I was right, man. I was right. And that's kind of what people are doing, like from a political perspective. It's like, I would rather be right. I would rather show you that the orange man that you voted for is a piece of shit. And the way that I'm going to do that is by burning the country to the ground. It's like, that doesn't make it. You live here. We all live here.
Yeah, we all live here. And I mean, I don't know, man. Like we should all be on the same team.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like maybe you have a different idea of how to get to the same goal. but we should all have the same goal, which in my view would be, economic security.
Yep.
And fiscal security. I mean, that's what I want my government to give me.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I want my government to give me.
Yep.
And that should be everyone's kind of like, at least I think, should be everyone's like, all right, this is what we're all shooting for. And maybe I have a different idea of how to get to that goal.
Yep.
But at the end, if we get to that goal, who the fuck cares?
Exactly
you know
right.
What I mean? Who the fuck cares?
I think one of the things that I want to instill to my kids, and I'm not sure how to do it, is to basically be a free thinker, is again, looking at it from the political perspective, like there's so much polarization and everything, but on both sides, like the devout, hardcore, one way or the other, they're just regurgitating everything that they hear. Right? Yeah. It's like I'm just taking what the media feeds me and I'm not even processing it. I'm just regurgitating it, right? Like I think one of the things that I do well, and I don't know how or why I started doing it, but I'm really fucking good at reading between the lines.
Yeah.
Like I'm the type of person that I can go and learn a lot from a janitor. It's like you have to be able to read between the lines. Like one of, Rob Bonifant, I worked for him before I was doing anything in real estate, It's like I learned so much from that dude. And a lot of times, like, I learned things not to do. And I love the dude to death, but it's like, it's when you're watching somebody, like a lot of things that you pick up on is not what somebody says or what they do. It's kind of the big picture and seriously, like reading between the lines.
Oh, absolutely.
And picking up maybe what not to do or,
or even,
but you got to be able to think freely and not just like take something at face value. It's like, let me think about it and accept that my preconceived bias might have been wrong. And I think that's probably why most people don't want to do that, because they don't want to accept I was wrong. Dude, I'm wrong all the fucking time.
Yeah,
all the time. Like, but my entire sales team, like everybody jokes all the time that it's like, oh, Drew was wrong again. It's like, man, I'm wrong all the time because I take shots.
It's all right. Yeah, it's all right to be wrong. It's okay. Oh, I'd say, dude, the more times you're wrong, that's just the more ideas you had. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it is. And it's cool. It's all right. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong.
It's not the end of the world, dude.
Yeah, it's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with being wrong.
That's right.
And, to your point, being free thinkers, I think that like a product of that is just being curious. You know what I mean? Like asking questions. I mean, if you're like, that's one thing that I really want my girls to do, is ask questions. Even if you think just ask questions. Yep. Like there's nothing wrong with asking questions. You'll understand whatever that issue is even better. And B, you'll, learn and you'll engage someone, you'll create a relationship just by asking questions.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you don't know something, or if you know something, maybe a topic that you think you know very well, someone knows a different perspective of it. You know what I mean? And if you don't ask questions, then you're just taking everything at face value.
Exactly.
And you're not thinking for yourself.
That's right.
And that's a horrible thing to, like, that's a horrible personality to have. Like, just whatever somebody says, it is what it is, and that's it.
Yep.
Like, there has to be, like, sometimes things don't make sense, and you need to ask questions. You know what I mean? Like, what they're doing with the tariffs. Dude, I am not a fucking economist.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
I'm sure there's very smart people that are trying to figure this out.
Yep.
And, the only thing I can do is ask questions like, why are we doing this tariff? Why are we doing that tariff? What does that mean for us? What does that mean for my pocket? What does that mean for mortgage? You know what I mean? Like, these are all things that, all right, yeah, we have tariff. Now I'm going to start screaming about tariffs like this is completely unfair and blah, blah, blah.
And acting like I know everything.
Yeah,
and it's like,
exactly.
you never even knew what the word was
Yeah.
until a month ago.
So, I mean, when people like react that way, it's such an emotional response, and it's so like it doesn't make sense, because if somebody tells me, hey, Tara, we're going to tax you. All right, why the fuck are you going to tax me?
Yeah.
Aren't you going to ask that question? Like, why?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because, Tara, you made X amount of dollars and you owe us the money. All right, well, that makes sense. All right? Or, hey, Tara, you charged me $80 to sell your product, and I didn't charge you anything to sell your product. I'm going to start charging you money. Why? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And from what I understand, other than these like kind of non-tariff trade barriers, which I don't fucking understand at all, when they talk about them, I kind of have some understanding, but I don't fully comprehend it. If to me, when they say reciprocal tax, a tariff, I'm like, all right, that makes sense. Just face value,
logically, yeah, without even getting deeper into it.
So that makes sense. You charge me X, I charge you X.
Yep.
Cool. You know what the logical conclusion is to that? We charge each other $0.
Yeah.
Because why the fuck are we collecting money?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I go when these issues happen and these policies get announced and all this. My initial reaction is never, oh, what the fuck, and my initial reaction, well, what does that mean?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And
curiosity.
What is that? You know what I mean? Because how else are you
and
going to?
No matter what, you have to navigate it anyway.
Yeah,
you have to.
You have to.
So
whether
adapt,
it's right, wrong, or indifferent. Yeah, I mean, you got to figure it out.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And if it's not going to be this rule, it's going to be another rule that maybe it's a rule that you agree with. You still got to figure it out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that you're right, dude. That being that, having that curiosity is so important going forward for all the kids to have, and it keeps them busy too. You know
Absolutely,
what I mean?
it does.
It keeps them busy. Wanting to know something is, and like going out to figure it out. I mean, it keeps them busy in the best way possible.
Yep.
In the best way possible.
Do you plan to have more kids?
No, I'm too old to have any more kids, man. I want to, like, I'm 40. I just turned 46. My oldest is 4. My youngest is 2. I mean, by the time in 20 years, I'll be 66. She'll be 24. God knows, God knows when people get married, are going to be getting married back in then. But
yeah.
You know what I mean? And odds are I'll probably have another girl, because that's the way it's going to happen.
I don't know, man. I started the same way. I had 2 girls and my third was a boy, and I was not planning for him. So here we are,
Well, is it possible to have another child? It's definitely possible, but highly unlikely.
Fair.
And it won't be, it definitely won't be planned. That's for sure. I mean, honestly, I'm happy with, I got 2 beautiful girls. They're healthy. I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Nor, if we end up having another child, I'm not going to poo-poo it.
Right.
I'm going to love that child. You know what I mean? It'll be great, but we're definitely not planning on it.
Yeah. Dude, I think it was just last night, or maybe it was 2 nights ago, that my wife made a joke about having another. And I'm like, oh, she's like, I'm joking. It's like, yeah, but the root of every joke is a little bit of seriousness.
There's some truth to it.
I don't know.
How would you feel about having a number 4?
I would embrace it, I think. I don't want to, but that's probably just from a selfish perspective, right?
Sure.
It's like the time and the, you know, starting the clock over again with diapers and all the, you know, but the reality is, my wife is freaking awesome. And it's so awesome that both our wives have the same name, by the way.
I know.
Dude, she's such a good mother. And
I mean, that's
seriously, talk about like purpose and everything. Like, that woman was put on this earth to be a mother, man. She's so fucking good at it.
Oh, that's
like,
awesome.
And seriously, like, I feel bad when I say this, but it kind of, seeing how good she is as a mother, as a parent, like, it makes me feel comfortable and confident to just like go out and work and do the things that I need to do. And it's like, I still have friends and she has friends that are like, oh, you know, your husband works so much. How do you freaking let him do that all the time? And it's like, well, for one, I'm providing for my family.
Yeah.
And two, it's like, it sounds weird. It sounds bad, but it's like my kids, I mean, I'm still there, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, they don't need me as much as they kind of need her. You know, it's like when I'm in the picture, it's like I'm there every night, right? It's like I still make it to all the games and everything, you know? But it's like, yeah, dude, there's times where I work 80, 100 hours a week. Like, it happens. Yeah. You know? And usually it happens in waves. It's like, 2 months of just grinding it out and I'm sleeping on a couch in the office and getting stuff done. But when I'm going through those phases, it's like I kind of have that comfort of being like, I know that she's got this, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And bro, that's so critical.
It's a blessing, man.
Yeah, it really is. It's a blessing, you know, and it's great to have that. And knowing, like, each relationship, I feel like if everyone has, each person has a role, you know what I mean? And the best of relationships is people that love their role within that relationship. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
And it's, you know, for people that are looking at relationship advice, and I'm not saying this in a weird way or a fucked up way, but know your role. If you know your role in that relationship and you love it, I mean, you could have good times, bad times. It'll last for forever. Yep. You know what I mean? Like both me and Sin, both full time, and you know, I see what you're saying with the girls don't need me as much as they need her. You know what I mean? Like, they need her because it's their mommy. You know what I mean?
And it's also funny that it's like the things that maybe you can relate to this. It's like, as the dad, I come in and I say something one time and it's like it just happens and they start doing that and they start, you know, experiencing, you know, it's funny how it works like that.
It is.
And I do feel bad because it's like I watch her repeat the same thing over and over and over again. You got to do this. You got to clean up your room. You got to do this. You got to do that. And I say it one time, you know, in the 2 hours that I'm there at night before they go to bed. And it's like they absorb everything that I say and shit gets done.
I mean, I feel like that's all, like, that's the traditional father role. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. And I don't know if it's, you know, something that the kids know, like, innately. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, man.
I don't know. Yep. Or it's something that they form that kind of response in their heads. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it does. Like, my wife will tell the kids 1,000 times, like, go upstairs. It's time to go upstairs. Let's go upstairs. It's time to go to take a bath. You know, and then she'll come and be like, Tyra, can you tell them? And I'll say it once, and they're running upstairs. Yep. So I don't know. Maybe it's the father figure thing, and but it's, you know, I'll tell you very interesting, and I want to get this stat right. But I think I was listening to a podcast and they said sons in a basically a broken home, that grow up in a broken home without a father, have a 60% more likely to go to prison or jail than their counterparts with a dad.
Yep.
I mean, that is a mind-boggling fucking stat.
Yep.
And I think I'm shortchanging it. I think it's actually more, but I'm just saying 60%. But it's some ridiculous figure that it's a shame that that family or that father figure kind of role is not as popular.
Yeah.
I guess the right word is.
Yeah, man.
It goes back to kids like growing up and not having the kind of discipline.
That's right.
And maybe the respect, because you're there, I'm there, and we go in and we're like, do this, they do it. Yep. Right. And imagine now kids that don't have that, you know what I mean? They don't grow up with that. And then, they go to school, and who do they have as role models?
That's right.
Other kids at school that, do shitty things, and now they're doing shitty things. So it's completely understandable how that lack of a father figure at home results in kids getting attached or having a father figure that maybe shouldn't be a father figure. Dude. At school or in the street or wherever. It doesn't, you don't have to be from the hood to get in trouble from, get in trouble with the law. Yep. You know what I mean? They don't go, they're not mutually exclusive. You know what I mean?
Right. Dude, I'm going to get canceled for saying this one, but this is one of the reasons that I despise the feminist movement, because it's like everything that they're pushing for, it's like they mask it as like women empowerment, but it's like what they're usually pushing for is like, for everybody, for man and woman to be equal. We're not. Just like you said, know your role. Like a man has a very important, distinct role and responsibility in a relationship when it comes to families, and so does a woman. We are not the same. That doesn't mean that you are not as valuable as a woman. It's we just have very different roles.
I think that's where I think that's where the message gets lost when there's an automatic emotional reaction to saying you're not equal, because that in their minds means that you're not as good.
Right.
Where it's not what it means exactly, at all. Yep. You know what I mean? It's you have a different role. That's right. That's like saying I don't know, like the jockey and the horse are equal. They're not equal. Yeah. They play two separate roles. Yep. The jockey's controlling
and they're both
horse.
Important. You take one away, the whole thing falls apart.
Exactly. It's very, the feminist movement. I think, I have two girls. I'm a fucking feminist. You know what I mean? I want girls but let's be fucking reasonable here. Yep. You know what I mean? Like being a mom is such the greatest role. I wish Cynthia was able to stay at home and be with our kids all the time. And I'm sure she does too. But that role is so important. And I've seen feminists almost shrug it off like, oh, you're just a mom.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's not appropriate. Being a mom is definitely harder than your fucking 9-to-5 HR job.
Way.
You know what I mean? Or the teaching gig or whatever gig that you have. Yep. You know what I mean? It's not, I think where the feminists lose some of the traditional women, you know what I mean? And they kind of lose me is they do not cherish the role of the mom. And
I would also say that they don't cherish the role of a father, because they think that everything is, toxic masculinity and everything. And it's like a part of being a man sometimes is disciplining your kids. Is that being toxic? No, I don't think so. If you take discipline out of the equation for kids, what do you think the outcome's going to be?
I don't know. I don't even know what that term even means toxic masculinity. When people were saying that, I'm like, what does that even like mean? Like, I mean, a dude's a dude.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a dude has testosterone. Testosterone's masculine. Like, I mean, like, there's no like being abusive,
right?
Because you're
being
a dude.
Abusive or being a piece of shit.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
it's
that's
like
one thing.
Being
but that's
masculine is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, being
Especially
a guy's
in the traditional
guy.
sense.
Yeah, being a guy's guy. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, dude, the feminist movement has lost its way and like, you might get canceled because of this. In my mind, by allowing like the trans women compete with other like girls. And I say this as a father of two girls. Like, I don't want my girl competing in sports with a boy their age.
Yeah.
I just don't want it because that's not, you know, he's not,
It's not the same.
it's not the same.
No.
The boy is definitely more physically mature.
Yeah.
And is able to do more than my girl can.
Yep.
And I don't know when this became a thing. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand. And look, I get it. Like, you know, there's kids that have these issues.
Right.
You know, they think they're a boy, they think they're a girl, and they're not. You know, they have, and their parents, for whatever reason, choose to, you know, indulge that kind of thing, or that thought process. I mean, hey, everyone to each his own. You know, sure. I do not judge you. You do what's good for you. You do what's right for you and your family. I do not judge. God bless you. I wish everyone all the best.
Yep.
But once you start, you know, kind of taking things away from girls, like female girls, and you're a boy, that doesn't sit well with me, and it doesn't. I think it doesn't sit well with most people.
Absolutely. And then the virtue signaling of telling you that you're a piece of shit because you don't accept that boy as a girl and you don't want him to be able to compete because that's not a boy and you're a bad person because you're not respecting that other person. It's like, no, man, there's a big gap here.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's, again, it comes with like, these issues provoke such an emotional response. And from both sides, and rightfully so on both sides, because I get it. You're a parent, you have a kid that, you know, is a trans kid, you want to stick up for your kid.
You want them to have some sort of a normal life. Yeah, I get that. Cool.
I get it. That's cool. And you're on the other side, and you're like, why is my girl competing as a boy, or why are they even sharing a locker room together? I get the emotional responses to both.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you got to do what's fair. What's the most fair thing to do? Mm-hmm. And in this case, the most fair thing to do is, despite the fact that, you know, he thinks he's a girl, that boy needs to compete with other boys.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, they're physically the same.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And then he could continue, you know, being a girl. You know what I mean? There's nothing, like, why? That's logical.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then leave the girls to play with other girls.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You know, it's hard for me to understand how this has become, like, and I'm not. Has this become okay? I'm not a transphobe.
Yeah, no, not at all, man.
Not at all.
I don't judge
I don't
anybody.
judge
I don't
anyone.
care. I have gay
I don't
friends.
care.
You know?
Yeah.
It's cool, dude.
I don't care.
It's cool.
It doesn't matter. The sense of fairness and the sense of, you know, you need need to adapt to this thing that is not normal because we say so. Like, no, dude. Let's step back a little bit. You know what I mean? Let's, you know, this is not normal. Like, you know,
and that probably triggers a lot of people, like it's not normal. And dude, I think like not being normal should be promoted. I'm not normal. Yeah. You're probably not normal in a lot of ways too. That's cool, dude. Yeah. It's okay to not be normal. Like, and especially for kids when they're, you know, experiencing puberty and emotions and all these things happening. Dude. Like, they absolutely, every single kid has felt not normal at some point. That's why it's normal to not be normal. Like, that's okay. Embrace it. You're not the same as everybody else. That's cool.
Yeah. No, I fully, when I say normal, I mean like normal roles.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
And, you know, I'm sure we all had during our puberty years, I'm sure like, dude, I was like, dude, I wonder what this lipstick looks like on me and all that shit. But,
we just learned something, baby. You got the lipstick, you got the dress
on, you got the dress on, the high heels.
It's okay, man. There's probably a video somewhere of me like in a talent show in like 5th grade wearing a dress and lipstick. So
there you go.
It exists. It's probably out there.
But you know, I get it, and maybe we're making light of it, and that's not, you know, that obviously we were not trans kids. We didn't have that. That whatever it is, that thought process. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know why this has become such a polarizing issue, or an issue that, you know, people are willing to, you know, die on the hill for.
Right.
I just don't, I just don't understand it. You know what I mean? Because there's solutions to it that are really easy, but people don't want to like when they had the bathrooms, like boys can go into girls' bathrooms. Like, wait a second, dude. Like, I don't want to say like, you know, boys in that age will do and say anything to get into a girl's locker room.
Can you imagine, like, you know, being a teenager again?
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm a girl. Yeah, sure, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, a teenage boy doesn't have the the emotional intelligence to be like, all right, well, that's not right because I'm taking advantage of this, and this. All they're thinking is, I want to see some girls' titties, and this is the easiest way for me to do it, and that's it. Yep. That's their thought process as a teenage boy. Yep. I can tell you because I had those same thought process. Yep. You know what I mean? Yep. So
it's natural. Yeah.
It's natural. So why would you allow, like, as a administrator of a school, and dude, like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. You can simply say, boys go to boys' bathrooms, and if some kid or some, you know, trans kid feels uncomfortable, there's always a third bathroom, like a handicap bathroom, something. They can go to that one. Yep. You don't have to allow, you know, boys to go into girls' locker rooms and vice versa. Like, it's very interesting though that you hear about boys being girls in like high school and all this, or, you know, it's very rare that you have girls being boys. You know what I mean? That same, like, a girl wants to go into the boys' bathroom. Like, you never see that. Yeah. Yeah. Or at least it's never made the news, right, so to speak. Right. Yeah. And I don't know. It kind of begs the question, why is that? You know what I mean? Like, why is there so many trans, and I might get this right, boys that you know are girls versus girls?
That's interesting.
That are, you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
And it's very interesting because I think from a population perspective, for every 2 girls, there's a boy. Like, girls outnumber boys 2 to 1. female, male. Yeah. So you take the few remaining boys, you know what I mean, that are in this population, and then they're girls. There's even less boys to girls ratio.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's a very
thought, and it's like the only reason that I think it's a relevant topic and a relevant thing to talk about even on this podcast is because I do think that traditional family values are decaying, and a lot of what's happening in the news and the media, and this is one of them, contributes to the decay of traditional family values.
Oh yeah, I 1000%. I mean, the loss of traditional family values is sad.
Yeah,
it's sad. It's sad that the nuclear family is not prioritized more than anything else, because and it's heartbreaking to see even a couple of reports, like kids, or schools or a third party other than the parents are controlling somebody else's kid. You know what I mean? And that kid is maybe has they're getting what they want to hear from these third parties, whether it's a teacher or a counselor or whoever it is, and the parents, and you might have loving parents, like a nuclear family, father, mother, that are genuinely concerned for their kid, are losing their kid to kind of this weird ideology, or this weird kind of yes, we're just gonna, whatever you say is correct. You know what I mean? Let's not question what you're thinking or how you're feeling. Whatever it is, you're absolutely right for feeling it. I mean, that whole fucking premise that the kid is correct and you as the parent are wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know when that happened.
That's insanity.
I don't know when that happened, bro, but it happened, and this is the result of it happening. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't get it. We all go through phases as children, as teenagers, as adults. We go through phases in life, and our parents are kind of in my view, and I want to be kind of like the guardrails to those phases.
Yeah.
Experiment, but don't go there. You know what I mean? Let's push you back to wherever it needs to be.
Yep.
And, I'm picking we're talking about trans, but I even, I've seen a report about furries.
Oh my God.
And, I don't blame the kid is going to go through phases. I'm a dog. My 2-year-old goes around, licks me, you know what I mean? And licks whatever. And
my
licks
3-year-old is currently Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's he is Spider-Man.
And bro, it's I'm not yelling at her. Don't be, you know what I mean? But
right.
I'm also not going to encourage her to be a dog.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
And the guardrail, it's broken. People are not recognizing it. People are just I'm a dog. Okay, honey, you're a dog.
Yeah.
And we're gonna treat you like a dog. Right. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this podcast, but whatever.
Fire away, dude.
It's funny. I've never met a parent that had a furry, and I always say, not because I want to judge them or degrade them or anything like that. I want to ask a simple question, and that question is: if you and your child really think that you are, something other than human, a dog, a cat, whatever it is, why are you taking them to school? Shouldn't you be taking them to other to a place where other dogs and cats or whatever it is, so your child can be with who he relates to.
It's wild, man.
Right?
It's wild.
Like, and I'm not saying that, and I'm not asking that question, and I hope people don't take it as me talking down to anyone. I'm not. I'm literally asking that question.
You're curious.
I want to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know either. Like I would venture to say though that a lot of times in these situations and scenarios, especially the more extreme ones like that, like the parents probably simply aren't asking the child enough questions,
probably,
to understand what they're thinking or feeling or think they're feeling, and probably the discipline isn't there either, like. I don't know, man.
It's a weird phenomenon. I guess you would call it, because it's just, I've never heard of it like before COVID and all that. I mean, maybe this is like a product of kids being locked in at home for 2 years.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That had to do, psychological and emotional damage.
I can't imagine being, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and not going to school, playing with my friends,
not seeing kids,
and not seeing other kids. That's weird. Could you imagine?
No, not at all.
Like, I don't know, man.
So one of the things that I struggle with, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Like a lot of people that I talk to, especially that are entrepreneurial, they are on the path to building wealth, building freedom, stuff like that. A lot of people say that they want to, create generational wealth for their kids. They never want to have their kids have to work as hard as they did. And I struggle with that, man. Like, I think I still got some years to figure it out anyway. My oldest is 13, so I have less time with her.
Yeah.
But like, even if I was mega, mega wealthy, I think I would want my kids to experience some form of struggle, some form of like the necessity to go out and hunt and kill metaphorically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You hear too many stories about like the wealthy billionaire who has kids that never really experienced the world at all. And, they're not grounded. They don't have, I don't know, man.
You're probably, in this, I am very steadfast. My girls are going to work, and they need to work. They need to understand what it takes to make $1. They need to understand, like, once you make it, what do I do with it?
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? Like, that knowledge with me telling, like, when I was young, everybody could tell me 1,000 different things. If I didn't do it myself, I wouldn't trust it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I had to learn the hard way. If
that's how most people learn.
Yeah.
Like
the hard way, I had to learn.
Yeah.
Terry, don't do that. You're gonna fucking fuck it up, or you're going to fail, or you're going. I got to do it.
Got to do it.
I got to do it.
Yep.
And I think that knowledge, that hands-on approach to learning,
life.
To life, and just like earning the dollar, learning, like, okay, you earned $1, you go out and you spend it, and then me as the father, I would imagine I would be like, well, what, you want to go out and pay for, you want to buy whatever. Well, where's your money? Oh, I spent it.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, you feel that? You feel that?
That sucks, right?
Yeah, it's how the world works.
Yeah, and
got to make choices, got to make decisions.
Correct. And bro, I will tell you a very cool story. And this is one thing that my pop did, and I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. I was maybe a freshman in college. I was a freshman in college, and I needed a car. And my parents, they did well with I never I worked, I made money, and that was my money, right? So I was working, I had to save up money to buy a car. I saved up money, I bought a car. During that same time, a bunch of kids were going to Cancun for spring break, and my father was like, my sister was going. Everybody I knew was going. My father was like, so you're gonna go to Cancun? I was like, no. I gotta fucking buy the car. I need the car. You know what I mean? That's the more important right now. All right, cool. Got the car, was happy. Then like the next day, my pop gave me the money to go to Cancun.
No way.
Yeah. And I was like, what's this for? And he was like, because you made the right decision.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? And I want to be in, because that.
I got goosebumps there a little bit, man. That's cool.
That was so cool. And that was like, that kind of reinforced me to be like, all right, you got to make the right decision.
And when you make the right decision, it pays off.
Pays off. And I think that's what he was trying to teach me, and he did. Like you got to do what's right.
Yep.
And I want to be in the position to like my kid to do the same thing I did, and me in the position that my father was in, and reward her for doing the right thing.
That's so cool.
And I think the only way to do that is for them to work, to earn.
I agree.
To learn that value, because, hey, could my dad have bought me that car and paid for the trip to Cancun? Absolutely, 1,000% without even sweating it. You know what I mean? But he didn't.
That's
and
right.
I honor him
a better
for that.
person as a result of it.
I honor him for that.
Yeah, man.
I think that was the best kind of life lesson that he could have instilled in me.
I love that.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I'll never forget that. That was so touched. I was so happy, and not because of the trip, but because he thought of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because he's like, all right, I did the right thing, and I was rewarded for it, and it was just a special. Like, I'll never forget it. Never forget that.
I love it. All right, let me bring this back, ask you one more question.
Yeah.
12, 13 years in the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, if you went all the way back to college, would you have done anything differently?
Wow. I like to say no, but I mean, could I have done some things differently? I don't know, man. It's a hard question to ask, because I'm in the camp of, whatever I did, and it got me to where I am right now.
Yep.
And if I change one thing that I did in the past, would I be in a better position today than I am? That's such a hard question to answer. And at the risk of not being where I am, I would say, no, I wouldn't change anything, because I'm happy with where I ended up.
I love that answer.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
If I could go back and I don't know if I would change anything, but would I change one thing? I probably would have changed that I didn't party as long as I did.
Okay.
One kind of, and I don't know.
You were making money while partying, though.
I was making money, but I spent it all. The one kind of life lesson that I want to, and I don't know how I'm going to teach my daughters this. Maybe you're going to have the same kind of question, but like when you're, and my mom used to tell me this, it's unfortunate that at such a young age, we have to make decisions about things that are going to affect us when we're so much older, right? So in our 20s and early 20s and all that, if I could have made decisions that would have made my life a whole lot easier in my late 20s, early 30s, and even today. You know what I mean? Easier, not better. I would just easier.
Yep.
And I want to be able to instill in my kids that, doing the crazy things when you're young and 20 and all that. Yeah, but with sort of a limit, because the best times of your life, I think, are when you're in your late 20s, early 30s and beyond. You know what I mean? Like you're independent, you're making your own money, you can go on trips, you can do whatever the hell you want to do.
Yep.
But and I'm going to say this with as much like I was lucky to end up where I am. I say that only because I wasn't the greatest kid. I got in trouble a lot. I partied too much. And if one thing would have went wrong in those years, I wouldn't be where I am. You know what I mean? Just one little thing went wrong. Cop, I got arrested, cop pulled me over. One little fucking thing.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be, thank God, somebody was looking out for me. You know what I mean? And I don't want to stop my kids from having fun because they need to have fun. But I want to be like, I want them to kind of navigate that a little better than I did. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Where they're not, party, I'm going to work just to go party kind of mentality that I had at that young age. You know what I mean?
I totally understand.
And it's such a hard lesson.
It is, man. It's a really hard balance because it's like, what is the answer? I want you to experience life, but I want you to be safe.
Yeah. And I want you to make the right decision so you make your life a little bit easier.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's a catch-22 in so many ways.
Yeah. It's hard to quantify that and say, do this, but don't do that. You don't know.
Yep.
But it's cool. I think the earlier in life that they hold on to more responsibility and reward. Not to say that I wasn't, because I worked a lot when I was young, but I don't know, man. I don't know what that answer is or how to, explain that to them.
Yeah.
Because I know me, when I was 20, no one could explain anything to me. I fucking knew everything. And whatever I was doing was the best thing to be doing.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I do. I know exactly what you mean.
So
I don't think there is a right answer, though.
There is.
It's I think the answer is just raise good humans, and the rest is probably going to shake itself out, man. And you've done that thus far. You're going to continue to do so.
I mean, we don't have a long track record to say, but I'm hoping that I'm doing well so far. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I would put money on it. Put money on it. Last question, though.
Yeah.
I thought of one other thing that I'd kick myself if I didn't ask you. So you mentioned something earlier that a lot has changed in the mortgage industry over the years, and it's a lot harder today. What would you say to somebody that was considering starting today in the mortgage industry?
Oh, what I would tell them. It's kind of a loaded question.
Would you say don't?
I would probably say don't. And I'm not
Terry's
saying
keeping that market share, baby.
And I'm saying that only because, and this is going to sound dire, but I don't know how many more years mortgage people are going to be needed. Could be 10, could be 15, could be 5. I don't know. I don't know if it's, and I don't know if it's going to be called a mortgage job. I don't know that I'm going to have to be calculating income in the next, 3 to 5 years. You know what I mean? Because the mortgage industry has become so automated that I could take your tax returns, feed it through an AI machine. They spit out income, and that income is as good as gold according to the regulators.
Yeah, right. Because it's done the way that they do
through
it.
AI, and it's done, and that's it. So at some point, that's going to become the norm.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Where my only role essentially will end up being not so much as almost like I don't want to say a fun, but like a guide. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're going to get this, you're going to do that. And there's really not going to be an analysis kind of approach.
Right.
So it's going to be more of a sales job.
Yep.
So, if you're asking me to get it, if somebody's getting in like straight out of college, I would probably do, get into a sales job, because that's essentially what this is going to end up being. And you'll probably be able to get into another sales job that pays you a salary. You're not 100% commission.
Right.
To get going. I mean, sales will never die.
Yep. Agreed.
Sales will never die. So learning sales, I think, is probably a great approach.
That's what you would recommend.
That's what I would recommend. Okay. Learning how to be learning sales and marketing, because I don't care what industry, whether it's mortgage, real estate, doesn't
matter.
HVACs, whatever. If you know how to do sales and marketing, you're going to win.
Yep.
So I don't know that I would give. I'd give that piece of advice. I mean, if somebody loves mortgages and you love doing, you love the intricacies of 30-year mortgages and bonds and and mortgage-backed securities and all that, God bless you. I'd help them learn it and understand it and become great mortgage people. For your kids, my kids, it's going to be sales and marketing, and that's it.
I love it.
That's what I think.
That's helpful, dude. That's helpful. That's helpful. All right, Terry, people want to reach out to you. Where are they finding you? Social media?
They can find me on Instagram at Terry Kravaris, TerryKravaris, or you can go on my website, lendingbyterry.com.
I love that. Terry, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
It's been awesome. I appreciate you, brother.
It was great.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, bro. Thank you.
Boom.